clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the incredible action of African football. MC Alger battles it out with Orlando Pirates on Tuesday, 1 April at 9 p.m. live on SABC 1, SABC radio stations and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Get tested this April at Specsavers and we'll give you a free optical frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand. That's right, get a free frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye examination at Specsavers. Book online at specsavers.co.za or visit your nearest store nationwide. Early detection is key. Get tested today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.1 FM in Bombela.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So you do know that I was not here yesterday because of celebrating the day of Eid, which follows the fasting month of Ramadan, which, it's a whole month, right? And, no fast, no eating of food or water from sunrise to sunset. I'm not going to go into all of that, excepting the one thing that you just see the difference immediately, that I've got a bottle of water here in the studio, and it's the first time I've had a bottle of water next to me for 30 days. It's amazing how human beings get used to a change, a behavior change, and suddenly when the water's next to him, I'm almost shy to drink it because I've never done that 30 days. Never mind how bad my throat was and I've been coughing along. So now I've got the privilege of water and strepsils of sorts in case I need it. I've never had that privilege. I suppose by nature, these, fast for whichever religion that you follow, by their very nature, they are meant to disrupt, isn't it? Well, welcome to the show. My name's Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse. Wonderful to have you with us. And for the next 3 hours, we will touch on some of the biggest issues that moves the National Pulse. I have no doubt there are two things that absolutely stand out. The one is the nationwide outrage around and just so much happening around the issues of gender-based violence that once again comes to the fore, and a sense of helplessness around it. That's the one thing. The other one is the GNU and the budget. Oh my goodness, if you ask me, it is more difficult to predict what's going to happen in the next 3-4 hours than it will be to predict who's going to win the World Cup next year, if you get my point. It is crazy. I don't know, and you don't know. Everybody's saying whatever it is they want to talk about. Right, how do you engage? You can call in 086 000 2032, WhatsApp, text, or voice note 0614 104 107. Keep the voice notes up to 30 seconds max. You also have the option of tweeting on social media. So tag SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda, on the X platform. But let's get to some of the biggest issues we're going to cover, right? And this issue of gender-based violence certainly comes to the fore, right? So the tragic rape of 7-year-old has fueled nationwide outrage, with several marches taking place across the country today. So what we'll do is we're going to focus on some of them because they're that important. First, we're going to start with chatting to Mtobisi Nkalipi, who's the SABC News reporter, talking to us from Mpumalanga. Appreciate your time, Mtobisi. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Okay, so tell me, what are you covering so we can give us some context here?
Well, here in Mpumalanga, they gathered here in the city of Mbombela, and then the protesters then went to the provincial legislature where they handed over a memorandum of grievances to the Department of Safety, Security and Liaison, as well as the Department of Education. The protest march is now over. They've handed over the memorandum of grievances. So among those who were part of the protest, it's organizations that are helping rape survivors, rape survivors themselves. Some were accompanied by their parents. So that's what they did. One of the people that I spoke to is a 15-year-old who claimed that she was also raped while at school by a teacher last year. So she says she's calling for justice for herself, but also for the 17-year-old who was raped in that year.
I mean, this by nature, I mean, all rape and gender-based violence are just absolutely wrong, right? But there are some peculiarities around this one. One is the fact we're talking about a 7-year-old child, just 7. And then the allegations that the perpetrator could well have been the headmaster of a school, right? And the third part is the length from the time of initial complaints to where we are now. I mean, does that come through in terms of the protests and the anger that protesters feel, and therefore how they articulated their outrage?
That's what they're saying. They're saying that they want such cases to be taken seriously, especially because the 15-year-old who was raped here in Mbombela claims that she did not receive necessary support from the school. But instead what happened is that she left that school, so she was registered to a new school. When she went to the new school this year, she found that the teacher that who is the perpetrator now was employed in the new school that where she was going to start at that school in January. But fortunately, they engaged the school. They informed the school that this new teacher is accused of rape, and the survivor is this 15-year-old. Then the school took a decision to remove that teacher. But they are saying that this is because the schools are not taking this issue seriously. That's why they are calling now on the government, especially the provincial government, to say that they want the provincial government to follow in this case and make sure that the perpetrator is brought to book. And they want the government, even the national government, to ensure that rape cases are prioritized. That's what they are calling for.
And do they also get a sense of, almost helplessness? Because, I mean, I can tell you now, I mean, this conversation you and I are having, if I change the names and I give you a recording of something I've done 10 years ago, I think the grievances, the issues are just about the same thing. So there's a clear sense that whoever's in charge, they're not able to get a grip on this. That's why this abnormality is normal.
That's what we asked them to, what difference are they hoping to achieve with this march? They are saying that they are not going to be deterred, even if nothing is being done. They will continue marching and making noise until someone acts on this. As they've said that these cases are not taken serious, so they are still going to continue marching and saying that government should declare a gender-based violence a national disaster. That's what they want President Cyril Ramaphosa to do. So they are saying that they are going to continue making noise until their grievances are adhered to.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add that you think the audience needs to know?
Well, we also spoke to the mother of the victim, the 15-year-old. She says that she was also raped when she was 12 years old. So now she's not going to allow the same thing to happen, the injustice to happen to her child. She's going to fight until justice is achieved, because she claims that she doesn't even know what is happening with the case now. She's not receiving updates and all that. But we spoke to the police here in Mpumalanga. The police spokesperson says that the case is still under investigation.
Okay. So, I mean, that is just bizarre and frightening. You're saying there's a 15-year-old, I mean, we've been focusing to a large degree on the issue of, right, but you're saying that outside of that, there's a 15-year-old who's also said that she was raped, and her mother, who's 12 years old, was raped many years ago. So, I mean, this gives you a sense of the normality of what is abnormal.
It is very difficult for that family, especially because the mother was also raped when she was 12 years old. Now, today, she told us that her child as well was also raped at school. So that's why they also took part of the march. They were there carrying placards saying that they want to see justice done for all the rape survivors.
Okay. All right, let's leave it at that. I appreciate your time. That's Mthabisi in Kalipi, the SABC News reporter in Mpumalanga. We're going to stay with that story and the broader theme of gender-based violence, or this nationwide justice for Tswetswe, which I think has been sparked off by what has happened and the fact that it's such a recurring thing, and there's a sense that nothing can really be done about it. So we go to Cape Town now, when we chat to SABC News reporter in Cape Town, Mariska Botha. Mariska, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Hello, Ashraf. Yes, I listened there to your interview with my colleague there in Mpumalanga, and very much the same sentiment here. People are angry. People are simply livid. That I saw one of the posters read, "This should not be a headline," and then they made a mock-up of a TV news headline saying 7-year-old child rapist. So it should not be a headline. And why are we in 2025 still having to have mass protests of this kind, asking that children be kept safe at school, no less? So definitely there's anger here in our group as well. I mean, it was nuts. Thousands and thousands of people came out. I estimate around 5,000 that came out, mostly university students from across the Western Cape came out. There were also people from different organizations, community members. One of the organizers herself is a victim of abuse in school. And she said she came to the Department of Education, where we're standing right now in Long Street, where they're busy handing over a memorandum, and saying that her case was never resolved. And you can see the emotion on her face when she speaks about that. And her anger stems from something else. So every time there's a march like this, she is triggered. Every time there's a headline, like I told you about, it triggers a victim who's never seen justice. And they're calling themselves Justice for South Africa. And this is Justice for South Africa, Western Cape. And this struck me. They're saying they're no longer asking for action, they are demanding it. And they waited here for several hours for the MEC of Education, David Manuel, to come out to accept this memorandum.
Okay.
And that's the sense that I'm getting. The anger is just boiling over and it's pouring onto the streets.
But when they say they're no more asking for justice, they're demanding justice, do they also get a sense that justice will actually be carried out? And I'm saying that because you and I know the track record, particularly around justice for victims of gender-based violence, is just shocking. And I don't mean just the legal justice. There's also a sense that if a perpetrator wants to do what he wants to do, it's going to happen. There's just no protection for these young people.
Absolutely. I think that's part of the problem and part of the reason why people are so absolutely livid. We had a case in the Western Cape, and the perpetrator's name is Modine Pangaka. Now, he raped and killed a young girl as well. And he perpetrated a myriad of just horrific crimes. And most of it was heard in camera because of the nature of that case. And that man was out on parole for similar crimes that he committed in the 1980s. So definitely the justice system needs to tighten up. They're saying that there needs to be something done about how these cases are handled, how they process, what kind of protection there are, what kind of recourse there is for young women and young men who are victims of this kind of violence. But what was very encouraging, what I saw yesterday, it's usually mostly women that you see at these protest actions. But today there was a lot of young men. And one of the young men actually said, and he spoke in a very calm voice, he said, "We will be the generation that turns the tide." And I truly hope that is the case, because we need everyone to get on board.
How do and Mariska, very quickly, when they say turn the tide, do you get any sense that outside of them protesting, that there's a clear plan of action to turn the tide? And I'm just thinking back, to the 80s when there was a plan of action to stop and to kill off apartheid, for example. So what I'm saying, outside of slogans and talk, what's their plan of action to stem the tide?
Well, today we were told we're going to a protest march, and we figured we won't see some people, given that it's a national issue. None of us, not a single media house, expected thousands of people to rock up for this. And neither did the police. They were orderly, they marched, they said what they needed to say. But I think the government cannot see what is happening on the ground and the ground swell that is taking place. Then there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had. Well, because people, they've had enough.
Well,
they've really had enough.
Absolutely, and thanks for just reminding us on that last point. They've had enough, or we've had enough. Mariska Botha, appreciate your time. SABC News reporter covering the story of the Tshwetshwe March in Cape Town, but that is called Justice for SA or Justice for South Africa. Well, I mean, seriously speaking, where's the justice? How do we practically get to a position where all these campaigns around gender-based violence will come to a point where there's actual action? Or do we just repeat this all the time and there's massive protests because so many people are victims of it and it goes on for the last 20 years like, well, we just can't stop it. It's one of those things. Then we protest. Let's hear from you. This is the National Pulse.
What you're about to hear is not an email from Standard Bank. Good day, Dave. You haven't updated your details, so your account will soon be blocked. Please confirm your card number, bank PIN, card CVV number by clicking the link below. What? Don't fall for it. Standard Bank will never ask for your banking details in an email. Visit our help center on the banking app to learn more or call our fraud line on 0800 222 050. Another lesson to hashtag beat the scam. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Specsavers cares about your vision. Up to 1 in 4 children suffer from short-sightedness and may not complain about their vision difficulty. Get tested today. Specsavers.
The Hammers want to ease off the pressure with collection of 3 points at the London Stadium to rise from the bottom half.
We picked out Souček, and there is the goal! And he scored a few this season!
However, the Cherries believe a top half finish will be a good cherry on top.
Crosses towards the back post, looking for Tavernier! Who side-foots it past Vicario! And that is brilliant from Bournemouth!
This is the Premier League. Be part of the thrilling contest between West Ham United FC and AFC Bournemouth on Saturday, 5 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Do great solutions start with a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
By the way, you can watch the show via live streaming, so video live streaming. If you go to the website, well, not website, SAFM, in fact, on Facebook as well as on the X platform, you'll find us. You'll find us there. But you can also listen traditionally on radio and also on the SABC Plus app. So you have many, many options to be able to connect to the National Pulse, okay? Let's now get to our global watch. And Marine Le Pen, the leader of the far-right National Rally in France, has been found guilty of misappropriation of public funds. She's been barred from running for office for 5 years. She's also been sentenced to 4 years in prison, 2 of which were commuted to wearing an electronic monitoring service. So the question is, where does she go from here? And perhaps even more significantly for me, considering her position of being very right-wing and anti-immigration position, where does her party and her movement go from here? Prof. John Keicher is the former research director of the Department of Politics and International Studies at the University of Cambridge. Prof. Keicher, I appreciate your time. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good to hear from you.
Much appreciated. So my question, the most important one here, is what now for Marie Le Pen and what now for her party?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I must say that nobody quite knows. The issue is that Marine Le Pen is obviously sentenced to 5 years of ineligibility for any political office, and she is sentenced also to 4 years imprisonment, of which 2 will be hard imprisonment, in other words, with an electronic tag. She, therefore, is fighting. Last night, it was not clear what she would do, whether she would stand down and let her second in command take over, Jordan Bardella, a very young 29-year-old who's very dynamic and very successful in the polls. But she has then, in the middle of this yesterday evening, decided that she's going to fight on. And so what the Rassemblement National has decided to do is to turn to the French people and to say that this is a judgment of the judges, this is a republic of the judges, and that they must fight that. And therefore they decided to, this weekend, to hold a number of demonstrations, to put together an enormous petition to Parliament, to ask questions in Parliament, and to begin a campaign of what they claim to be the democratic explanation of the people.
Okay, so and what are the implications of the fight on? I mean, so the fight on, I take it, is a protest level fight on as opposed to a legal challenge, am I right?
Yes, she is going to appeal. But the problem is that the appeal process takes 2 years. And the big problem for Marine Le Pen is that a piece of French law that was introduced only a few years ago makes the sentence, even if she's appealing, immediately applied. Okay. So she is immediately suspended from any applying for any political office, and consequently, this is a massive blow to the most popular politician in the whole of France.
How, in terms of my original question about the implications, right? You said there's a younger leader now who would take charge. I mean, how much of that would change the policy of the party?
Well, I don't think the policy of the Rassemblement National is going to change at all. They're going to sort of dig down and dig in deep to what their policy has always been, which is a policy that is tough on immigration, very much in favor of France first, and in many ways a kind of Donald Trump kind of policy. I mean, well before Donald Trump began his policy. And that is what they're doubling down on, and that is not likely to change.
Let's go back to what actually happened. How did she get into a position where she then gets charged and has been found guilty of misappropriation of public funds? It's a big issue in South Africa as well. So what did she do?
Well, Marine Le Pen and the Rassemblement National, her party, were, as you know, the European Union. They stood for members of the European Parliament. And as members of the European Parliament, a number of them were elected, many of them were elected. And under the European Parliament, you're allowed parliamentary assistance. And parliamentary assistance, according to a very, very vague contract that they have with the European Parliament, those European assistants, parliamentary assistants, are, according to the European Parliament, obliged to work for the European Parliament, but according to Marine Le Pen, they were obliged to work for the party. That is how it works actually in the UK, as an example. But the European Parliament is different, and therefore, because they weren't working directly for the European Parliament, indeed, many of them didn't even attend the European Parliament, which is a bit excessive. As a result of that, the European Parliament said, well, look, we're paying these people to be assistants to the European Parliament, and they're not doing any work for us. Some of them haven't even turned up in Brussels at all. And that was the whole heart of the judgment that was taken against Marine Le Pen. The fact that they had not performed their duties in the European Parliament, and she contested that on the basis that the contracts that were drafted for these people were very vague, as all the European Parliament ones are, and consequently they could be interpreted in the way that she thought was appropriate.
Okay, we're on to news time, so very brief answer on this one. You mentioned, there could well be protests to take to the streets and try and protest in favor of Marine Le Pen and her party. In a case like this, do you find that, strangely enough, support for a person like her and her vision increases if it's packaged well enough to make her out as a victim?
Well, I mean, she remarkably, she is supported across the political spectrum by a number of people that one would not have imagined. There are people on the extreme left, and Marine Le Pen is on the right, the populist right, the nationalist right. There are people on the extreme left, such as the firebrand radical left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who said that it should be the people that decide who is the representative of France nationally, and it should not be judges that make these kind of decisions. So, and I say on the extreme left, right through to the centre, even the Prime Minister, the actual Prime Minister at the moment, said he found the decision troubling.
Okay, let's leave it on that last word, troubling, which may well be an understatement. Thank you for your time, Prof. John Kacher, who's former Research Director of the Department of Politics and International Studies at the University of Cambridge. Central to all that conversation, Marine Le Pen. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. For the news headlines, motorists will be paying substantially less at the pumps from Wednesday as fuel price decreases in April due to lower oil prices and a stronger rand. The price drops take place at midnight tonight. Electricity and Energy Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has announced plans to roll out a multi-billion rand transmission infrastructure projects through the private sector. And the head of European Union's Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has warned that it's ready to retaliate if U.S. President Donald Trump imposes further import tariffs on EU products. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road. The M1 southbound queuing towards Omonde. The N1 southbound is slow moving towards Malibongwe Drive. And the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash after Allendale Road exit. All lanes are open. In KZN, the N2 northbound in Amanzimtoti queuing towards Moskolnik Drive. The N2 southbound in Prospection queuing towards Joyner Road due to a crash on the opposite carriageway, and on the N2 northbound, a truck crash reported at Prospection. In the Free State, on the N3 northbound, a crash reported near the Frankfurt-Vrede interchange, and in Cape Town, the R300 westbound queuing towards the M7 Jakes Hadwell Drive, and the M5 northbound slow moving at Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkgapele.
Chumi, you absolutely have both eyes on a club called Mamelodi Sundowns. Tell me about that.
Very good afternoon to you, Ashraf. Welcome back, and also a very good afternoon to our listeners. Yes, I am looking at the TV right now. Mamelodi Sundowns in action. It's actually great to just see the stadium all yellow. A lot of fans have come through to support Mamelodi Sundowns. They're not the only side that's in action today. Also, Orlando Pirates, and they're playing the CAF Champions League quarterfinals first leg today. The Brazilians game against AS Tunis kicked off at 3 p.m. and right now it's 34 minutes in and it remains goalless. I'll definitely keep you up to date with that one. But Orlando Pirates head coach Jose Rivero says that he's banking on their experience against Sierra Belouizdad and Al Ahly, two top North African teams, as he prepares to meet Algeria Giants MC Alger tonight.
Well, we already have had some experiences to play in that kind of environment. We know that we will probably experience antagonistic atmosphere, but it's a football atmosphere, so we're more than happy to find ourselves there to not only play against the opponent in this case, also try to be cool, to be focused in what it matters, which is what's happening on the field, and have that experience in front of, like I said, probably a very passionate crowd. Is going to be nice. It's going to be a good experience for our players as well for the future, and we will prepare the game in the same way that we used to do it, which is with the intention to be ourselves, to get the result that we are looking for, which is no other than winning, understanding that it's going to be a a very difficult task to get that kind of result away from home in a Champions League quarterfinals, but that's a challenge. We accept it, and we want to try to be at that level.
Kickoff for this match is at 9 p.m. Still staying with football, the final spot that is up for grabs at this year's Club World Cup in the United States could be decided in a playoff game between Los Angeles FC and Mexican side America. And all of this is dependent on the legal case of Mexican side Leon, which was expelled for breaching tournament rules as it has the same owner of another team taking part, Peshua, leaving the one slot open at the 32-team event. Now, FIFA said that LAFC would be in the playoff because it finished as runners-up to Lyon in the 2023 CONCACAF Champions League, while America is the next best ranked team in the FIFA Club World Cup Confederation ranking. In the meantime, Everton have made a loss of £53 million. That's around 1.2 billion rand in the 2023-24 season, marking a 7th consecutive year in deficit, but they will avoid breaches of the league's profit and sustainability rules. Last season, Everton were deducted 8 points for 2 separate PSR breaches for the rolling 3-year periods, including the 2021-22 and 2022-23 campaigns. In January, the league confirmed that all clubs, including Everton, were financially compliant for the 2023-24 season. And then moving on to athletics, 2 Oceans Marathon runners will be able to personalize their medals and engrave it with their names at the finish line or in the days after the race. Now, the race this weekend, it starts with the Ultra Marathon, the 56-kilometer on Saturday, while the 21-kilometer is on Sunday. And the race has once again been awarded the gold label status, meaning all records set at the race will be validated by both the IAU and World Athletics, elevating the event to higher heights. In boxing, Kevin Lerena is working around the clock to make sure that he's ready for his bid to become the first South African in history to successfully defend a WBC title in Pretoria on the 1st of May. Lerena will face Serhiy Radchenko, and he's the only 3rd South African to have held a coveted WBC belt after Sugar Boy Malinga and Dingaan Thobela, who both held the super middleweight version. Then in cricket, the St. David's Maris Enanda School Cricket Oval has renamed the oval after Themba Bavuma, and now it's known as the Themba Bavuma Oval. Bavuma studied at St. David's, where he got the academic balance to his budding cricketing prowess. And finally, in rugby, New Zealand Rugby and Ineos have reached a settlement agreement. This is after the dispute over sponsorship contract. Now, Ineos, which holds a stake in Manchester United as part of its sports portfolio, walked away early from its sponsorship deal of New Zealand Rugby. It was a move that led to legal action from the governing body. However, now things have settled down. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
So, quick one. Sundowns, this result, what are you looking for? Of course, you want them to win, South African club. But, seriously, what does it mean?
It's a very interesting one. Obviously, it's the first leg. This is the very same side that knocked them out the other time. And also, obviously, for Mamelodi Sundowns coach, it's his former team. And he was at the helm of the side when they knocked out Sundowns. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to do. But yes, I am hoping that one way or the other, Sundowns wins this one because it's at home.
Okay, well, there we are. Home ground. Look at that. And there's a storm brewing over that stadium. And I mean a storm, literally dark clouds in the horizon, just there. But more sport in an hour.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Tell you, it's not surprising that one of the groups that I'm involved in is called the Champion Innovators, because we believe that innovation is such an important thing in our country. So with that in mind, I think our conversation next up is so important. There are big issues we know around power challenges, and we also have challenges around our water. It's becoming as big, if not bigger, than the challenges we faced for load shedding, right? So I understand now that here's a solution, potentially, how innovation can solve South Africa's water challenges. Let's find out more about it with Yershin Pillay, CEO of the Chemicals Industries Education and Training Authority, Rachieta. Yershin, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners. Great to be on your show again.
It's been a long time since I've been back since we chatted, right? So what's the problem the way you see it, and how do you solve the problem?
Well, the country, as we know it, is on the edge of a precipice. According to the data from Stats SA, more than 3 million South Africans lack access to basic water provision. 19% of our rural communities lack access to a reliable water supply. In fact, only 23% of our municipalities achieved good capacity scores for effective water management. So the data suggests that, we have a water problem where even our economic forecasts suggest that by the year 2030, the water demand could exceed supply by 10%. And, with the country being a water scarce country, water poverty is one of our biggest developmental challenges. So the data is also saying to us that, according to South African Weather Services, that we receive an average rainfall of about 450 milliliters as compared to a global average of 1,000 milliliters. So this problem is really an escalating water crisis that requires an immediate action by all stakeholders in society.
Okay, so that's the problem. Right now, I understand, you have a solution. You certainly believe that innovation can drive this change, right? Tell me more about it.
Yes, absolutely. So we've diagnosed this problem, and we've found through our own root cause analysis, we've identified 3 reasons why we may have this water problem. Firstly, we've got failing municipal infrastructure, which includes poor maintenance. Secondly, you've got climate change, which is leading to changing rainfall patterns. And thirdly, we believe that there's a lack of innovative solutions that are being attended to, or lack of innovation that's in terms of innovation mindset to address this problem. So the new approach that we think might actually solve this water crisis, or ensure that we have water security for all, is to apply an innovation lens to addressing the water problem. And so by applying innovation lens, we can turn this water problem into a water opportunity. It allows us to just reframe this challenge, not as one of water poverty, but as an opportunity of water security for all. And so the question then becomes, how do we see this opportunity of ensuring that we have new solutions to facilitate water security for all? So we've come up with, but there's about 5 innovation-driven solutions. The first one is, we need to make better use of new technologies that can help us achieve water independence, and that includes the likes of investing in climate-resilient water systems that could end our water poverty. Secondly, it's about more incentives for especially your enterprises, businesses, so that they see what's in it for them before they commit to sustainable water practices. And that could be more incentives for firms to treat and recycle water in their businesses. The third solution that we were considering is that looking at our water infrastructure, it's unable to distribute value to citizens. So we need to invest to ensure that our water infrastructure is safeguarded. And that really means, seeing this, not so much pushing the solutions into our communities, but investing more in local economic development so that our communities pool the water infrastructure and they then ensure that it is safeguarded, protected, and fully operational at all times.
So who should be talking about this? What I'm saying is the various water boards, Department of Water? Is it another government department? Is it business? Who drives this process, and who should be talking to each other? Oh, I think we may have lost Yershin. In fact, let me see if we can reconnect. Maybe not. No, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's do this in the meantime as we try and reconnect. Okay, Yershin, do we still have you there, right?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, the question I asked is in this process, right, who drives the process and what's the level of collaboration between the different stakeholders?
Well, we believe it's going to be state-led and community-based. So, we've got to ensure that you have the state investing greater resources, but also coordinating the interventions, because one of the challenges you might face that if it's private sector-led is that you could focus more on, profit maximization, reducing costs, and so you might see more underserved communities as a result of the private sector focus on this. So if we invest more in state-led water solutions that are underpinned by innovation, but that also ensure that your communities take ownership of this, you might actually find more long-term viable solutions and more sustainable solutions to this water crisis.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add just as a final point that perhaps points a way forward for the future and a more exciting and palatable future, if I can say that?
Well, I think the two main things for us is we also need to invest in new skills for water management. So, a teacher or politician cannot be employed to maintain water infrastructure. We need competent water engineers, so we need to close the skills gap in water management. But we're also investing in waterpreneurs or, water harvesting cooperatives. For example, there's more water in the air than there are in dams and rivers in the world. So we think that if you have independent water harvesters able to harvest water from the air, and so we've got a program of investing in startups and SMMEs that are able to, and cooperatives, water harvesting cooperatives in communities. We should then be able to facilitate water security for all. And this is a process. It's not necessarily an event, but I think with a mindset shift, we could generate more innovative strategies for attending to our country's water problems.
Okay, lots to consider from all of that. Yoshin Pillay, CEO of the Chemicals Industries Education and Training Authority, making the point for innovation to solve South Africa's water challenges. I would have thought that perhaps we'd have been innovative already. So if we have not been, why are we lagging behind even in the testing innovation phase? Welcome your calls. I will take your calls because I want to get a sense of what your pulse tells you right after this.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get your calls. I want to get your thoughts. So, again, if you're a first-time listener turned first-time caller, then I absolutely want to welcome you on board. So please let me know. At the very least, I want to give you a shout-out. But of course, we know we have many regular listeners, regular callers from crisscrossing the country, and many people listening via streaming live from around the world, with Australia, the USA, many of the African countries, as well as the Middle East. I'd love to know as well where you are and what you want to talk about. Okay, let's get to you and want to find out what you're thinking, right? So first up, we'll get to some of the voice notes that we've got, if we can just play those.
Afternoon, Ashraf. After tomorrow, dear, we start talking about Palapala, about CR70, about the state capture. This marriage is toxic. It's about blackmailing each other. If you don't shut up, I'll talk about Palapala. If you talk too much, I'll bring EFF and the MK on board. It's about blackmailing each other. Yeah, it's so interesting. Norman from Brixton.
Norman from Brixton. Let's get to some of the other thoughts that we've got. I think the GNU story is something we must talk about, but lots of reaction from the conversations we've been having around rape and gender-based violence. Let's play that too.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and the listeners. I can think of only one suitable in the case of it being perpetrated, punishment for rapists of underage children. Some travellers were, I forget whether it was Pakistan or somewhere near there, heard a horrendous screaming in hospital, and they went to see what was happening, and it was a man strapped down and being castrated because he'd been discovered perpetrating rape. So that's just my thought. Thank you.
Okay, so that's your line of action, and you suggest that could be deterrent enough. I wonder whether others, do you in fact agree?
Good day, Ashraf. What about the 3-year-old baby girl that was raped by a shopkeeper not so long ago? Where was her father? He took her to that damn shop. Where the hell was he? He was supposed to be her protector. She must have been screaming blue murder. You mean to say he couldn't hear her? He should be charged along with that bloody shopkeeper.
Well, I'll tell you what, your frustrations and your anger is amplified nationwide, as it should be. Maybe even here's the point. Where is the national anger around gender-based violence as versus the anger we display about some other things that are lesser important, isn't it? Just think about that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mcete here in Kala. Ashraf, politics and politicians are not relevant anymore in the case of this used to be a developing country with its own companies, industries, and progressive schemes, which were promising prior. South Africans have voted for some parties to parliament to retrieve the country in this destructive damage it has found itself in. What they are doing is to bargain for their selfish benefits with the lives of South Africans behind closed door. Oh, South Africa. Thanks, Ashraf Mcete here.
Okay, there you are. Thanks for that. In fact, talking about the bargaining that takes place, I just wonder, what do you make of this whole GNU story once again?
Afternoon, Ashraf. After tomorrow, dear, we start talking about Palapala, about CR70, about the state capture. This marriage is toxic. It's about blackmailing each other. If you don't shut up, I'll talk about Palapala. If you talk too much, I'll bring EFF and the MK on board. It's about blackmailing each other. Yeah, it's so interesting. Norman from Brixton.
Hey, Norman, you know, your last line almost flopped it for me. Why would you say it's so interesting? It's an absolute thriller, man. You know, interesting is like downplaying it. No, it's a thriller. And it's exactly what, I mean, you're right on all accounts. It's threat and counter-threat all day long. And here it is, you and I, watching and listening and being part of this game that we call government.
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. I hope you had a blessed Eid yesterday. This is Forrest from the beautiful Western Cape. Ashraf, if that principal wasn't at the school on the day of this alleged rape, then why does he not want to give a sample, a DNA sample? If I know I wasn't anywhere near an area where a crime was committed, then I would easily give my fingerprints or a DNA swab. Have a good job, bye-bye.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the Eid wishes. Yeah, and as you know, you probably saw the Maankykers at Three Anchors Bay in Cape Town. This huge, I think like 50,000 people just trying to sight the crescent moon. But I mean, to your point, right? Yeah, I mean, obviously, why would you not give a sample? You would not give it because you're scared, or you're defiant to say, well, I did nothing wrong. But I mean, in the face of clear, evidence or accusations, surely you'd want to clear yourself, particularly considering the position you're in education and education leadership. I'll get to calls as well in a moment. By the way, if you wish to call in from anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, I want to hear from you, right? Because you do have your fingers on the pulse, don't you? So it's not just us reflecting the national pulse. What do you feel? To call in, it's 086 000 2032. I mean, I want to put this to you around the issue of gender-based violence. And I'm saying, as I said before, that issue has been discussed for 20 years. The names change, so the players change, the game changes in that sense. But the actual match is the same. It's going on for 20 years, and the stories are the same old stories. And we've been unable to stem that tide no matter what. And the stories are not just, by the way, they're horrific stories, and the numbers appear to be rising. And I get a sense that we're rather helpless when it comes to this. And you pray as we talk that it doesn't happen to anybody we know, but sure, it's happening, man.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I was listening to the General Secretary of ANC, Mr. Fiki Dembalola, when he was saying there might be a reconfiguration of the GNU, and he went on again to say the ANC is not holding an axe in their hand to chop off anybody from the GNU. In my mind, I thought of the DA. So we might see the DA pulling off pulling out, and EFF or the MK, but particularly the the EFF coming into the GNU, because it seems DA is still adamant on the question of refusing to see tax increase. So we might see some new cabinet ministers from the EFF. Let's watch this space.
Well, we certainly are watching this space. Thank you for that. I mean, Yuri, this is what we know, that a deal was not made between the DA and the ANC. That we know. We also know now that Action SA is coming to the party, and they've said, well, they've been able to convince the ANC not to raise VAT. But if they've done that, then isn't that what the DA has been asking for? It's ironic that the party that seems to be the party for business, the DA, that's the brand, are here talking about we will not have a situation where the poor are punished even further. And the ANC are going to go ahead and do that. But if they do so, well, the Action SA say they've got a plan, and we'll find out what that plan is tomorrow. The bigger issue is like, what does this do about that relationship called the GNU? Machebe in Middleburg, go for it. I'm very good indeed. Good to connect with you.
Yeah, I'm good. You know, this issue of the principal not consenting for DNA sample to be taken, it might be that he's having a fear that the olden cases that was unresolved might kick in. Because if there's a rape case and the perpetrator is unknown, those DNA results will be hanging there. Up until you commit an offense, then it links you. Let's hope he's not afraid of that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah. Okay, let's see how that one plays out. Thanks for that, Matebe. Colin in Cape Town, go for it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you.
Ashraf, I'm just answering to callers now. If you listen to the lawyer of the principal, and he said that the procedures weren't followed. They wanted the police never asked for a DNA test until the mother of the child, which she works in the police force, she recommended, and the police said to him, the mother recommends that you have a DNA test. And then he phoned his lawyer to tell his lawyer about it. And his lawyer says, no, they never follow the procedure. I'll let you know what's going on, and so and so. So he got in touch. He wrote letters. He got in touch with the police. And till today, the police has not answered the lawyer's request. So people mustn't come and say that why didn't he do it.
Peter are you talking about? I mean, which Peter are you referring to?
I said people on the radio.
Yeah.
They mustn't come and say, why doesn't he want a DNA test? Why he didn't have it? Because they came to him and said to him, the mother of the child wants you to have a DNA, and he told you to.
And now that they've requested it?
Now they have not requested it yet. The police have not yet. Because yesterday morning, I heard the lawyer talk. He reckons we're still waiting for, and my client is prepared to have a DNA test. But the police must do their work properly. Now, people are jumping to conclusions we don't know. Now, I heard yesterday the MK calling the white man. They're getting involved here. The PA got involved with that Smith girl. They're in Cape Town here. And then
Colin, I think you've made your point. I hear you. Now we're talking about other issues. Let me leave it at that. You've made your point, and clearly maybe we've learned something from that call. Thanks for that, Colin. Right. Let's get to some of the other issues that we've got. Again, many other WhatsApps that we've got, and a lot of it, understandably so, links around the issue of the GNU.
Rasmatas has made it pretty clear to the South Africans that if DA and ANC don't find each other on budget today, the GNU will have to be reconfigured. Reconfiguration is a buzzword at ANC headquarters. Good afternoon, lovely brother. How's it from Bronfish?
Okay, there we are. Thank you. Right, I'll tell you what, we're going to talk more about this because clearly the issue about there's really two major themes or streams on the show today, right? The one is the issue of the GNU, and then the other, the central issue around gender-based violence that really has been provoked or prompted by what has happened around and the nationwide protest around that. So we'll cover both and a whole lot more. But let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Fuel price to decrease and EU ready to hit back at US tariffs if needed. For SAFM News, I am Mondela Mbana and a very good afternoon. Motorists will be paying substantially less at the pumps from Wednesday as fuel prices decrease in April due to lower oil prices and a stronger rand. The price drops take place at midnight tonight. The Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources says 93 and 95 octane petrol will go down by 58 cents and 72 cents per litre respectively. Diesel will also see a decrease of 83 and 85 cents per litre depending on the grade. Paraffin at retail level will decrease by R1.14 per litre. Robert Mark is fuel pricing manager at the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources.
The reason for these decreases are the lower oil prices and stronger rand against the dollar during the period under review. The minister has approved the annual adjustment to the transport tariffs and will range from 0 cents per litre in Zone 1A to 7.5 cents a litre in Zone 14C, which is in Mutale in Limpopo. This will mean that the fuel prices changes will be different in the 54 magisterial district zones.
Electricity and Energy Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has announced plans to roll out a multi-billion rand transmission infrastructure projects through the private sector. This will see the procurement of about 1,164 kilometers of 400 kilowatt lines in the Northern Cape, Northwest and Gauteng. Ramokgopa says the process will be managed by the National Transmission Company of South Africa that will be the buyer of the key infrastructure as government looks at economic growth, job creation and energy security.
We're looking to ensure that there's about 400 kV of transmission power lines with associated transformer infrastructure. So we're going to build 400 kV. The capacity of the lines is 400 kilovolts, and of course there's going to be also transformers that are going to support that. What is the length of the transmission that we are announcing today is 1,164 kilometers of new transmission lines.
President Cyril Ramaphosa and DA leader John Steenhuisen are meeting today as the deadline looms for the 2025-26 budget to be voted on in Parliament tomorrow. Earlier, the DA said that it would amend the proposed fiscal framework, ensuring that there would be no VAT increases. The meeting is aimed at breaking the deadlock between the parties. Marathon meetings have been taking place in recent weeks with the various political parties in an effort to get consensus on the budget. 11 children aged between 13 and 17 have been rescued from an unregistered shelter in Schoemansville near the Hartbeespoort Dam. During the raid, police also found 3 unlicensed rifles, explosives and ammunition which have been seized for further investigation. A 57-year-old suspect has been arrested and is expected to appear in the Brits Magistrate Court in Northwest today. Hawk spokesperson Katlego Mokhale.
Allegedly, the shelter was registered in 2012 and subsequently deregistered by the DSD following the entity not complying with the regulations and requirements as set out by the department. The DSD also indicated that the same shelter was not registered as a child and youth care center, therefore was in contravention of the Children's Act and regulations of the registered CYCC. This prompted law enforcement to apply for a search and seizure warrant in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act and Cyber Crimes Act, which was granted, resulting in the premises being visited.
The head of European Union's Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has warned that it's ready to retaliate if US President Donald Trump imposes further import tariffs on EU products. Trump said he'll announce a wide range of new tariffs tomorrow. The BBC's Paul Moss has the details.
To retaliate or just continue to negotiate? That is the question facing political leaders in Europe and indeed around the world as they brace for what Donald Trump is calling Liberation Day. Wednesday is when the US president is promising to unveil import tariffs against products from many countries. He says they've been ripping off America through their trade imbalance. The European Union already has plans to hit back with tariffs of its own, particularly against US steel. But Ursula von der Leyen has now threatened further retaliation if necessary.
Recapping the top story, motorists will be paying substantially less at the pumps from Wednesday as fuel price decrease in April due to lower oil prices and a stronger rand. I am Mondela Mbana for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, former Spar Proteas captain set to join Gauteng Fireballs as assistant coach. 6 Royal AM players now officially free to go, and the countdown to clay court season beginning. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Randburg has a stationary vehicle after Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN on the M7 eastbound queuing traffic towards South Coast Road. The N2 southbound is queuing towards the M41 Gateway exit, and Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place. In the Free State on the N3 northbound, a crash reported near the Frankfurt-Vrede interchange. In Cape Town, Bakengracht Street outbound slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Voortrekker Road is slow moving at the N7 Checks Hartwell Drive junction, and Stellenbosch Artiel Road westbound has a fatal crash reported at Saxtown Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.2 FM in East London. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Of course, we must talk about the budget vote and whether it's actually going to happen. And of course, we'll chat to 2 representatives from 2 different parties, the ANC's national spokesperson and the DA's national spokesperson, and that comes up shortly. But I want to just say this, just so that you know what I feel about this. So, of course, when I was a lightie, I also partook in these April Fool's Day jokes, and, you know, most of them are pretty minor, like, see, there's there's a ball stuck on the roof, and then the guy goes and look for the ball on the roof, and the ball's not there. We all have a good laugh. We're like, yeah. But like, as you grow older, you're just like, honestly, what's the point of it all? You know, and that's just at a trivial street level with a bit of jokes. Now, the part I'm particularly irritated about is this: when April Fool's Day jokes permeate into the news media space. For me, it's a complete no-no. Whether it's social media or whether it's formal mainstream media like all we do, and it's reported as if it's happened, and then later on you find out, well, you know, so you have to work it out that it's just nonsense. The problem is in this era of fake news, I mean, even a thing like, for example, I saw it today, when there were stories about the ANC and the DA not reaching a consensus and the GNU may be threatened and Action SA getting involved, the amount of people who said, April Fool's Day jokes, right? So my point about it is, like, honestly speaking, I have not liked the concept of April Fool's Day for a long time. I find it completely meaningless. But in particular, in the newsroom space, newsroom, social media, give me a very good reason why we should cover it at all. I certainly say no to April Fool's Day. Hopefully you're with me on this one, yeah. Right, we should be connecting with the ANC's national spokesperson shortly, but let's do this. Let's find out where we are from a DA perspective. Karabo Gaugao is with me, the DA national spokesperson. Appreciate your time, and thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. Hello to yourself and hello to your listeners.
All right, the most important question I want to ask you is, like, is John Steenhuisen and Cyril Ramaphosa meeting? Are they meeting today, and why so?
I am of the understanding that they have had a conversation, yes. There is a back and forth that's currently underway. We have not concluded yet. We were supposed to conclude last night between ourselves with the DA and the ANC. That conclusion hasn't happened yet. But you would also know, Ashraf, that the Finance Committee has been in a meeting since 10 o'clock this morning. And in that meeting, the Democratic Alliance has moved for an amendment and a tabling of an alternative fiscal framework which opposes that. We have tabled in line with the conversations you and I have had even in the past around our six-pronged plan, which seeks to make sure that we're able to cover the 60 billion shortfall that has been identified through dealing with fruitless and wasteful expenditure, dealing with ghost employees, dealing with the government's catering and traveling budget, dealing with the government's advertising budget, and being able to unlock opportunities there without taxing South Africans. This is something that as the Democratic Alliance we still believe we can still be able to achieve, particularly because, Ashraf, we do not have an generation problem as a country. We have an expenditure problem, and it should be government's responsibility to cut down on the fact of wasteful expenditure that they have accumulated over the years, so that we don't have to dig deep into the pockets of South Africa.
But here's the important part. It's not so much even what you think is right or your party thinks is right. Is, are you able to convince the African National Congress as your GNU partner to agree with you? It seems like you're not.
Yeah, it's a hard thing altogether, because how do you tell the ANC that has for years been governing alone, arrogantly so, with little to no accountability on how they manage the fiscus of the country? How do you tell them that, listen, you have a lot of ghost employees that exist as a consequence of corruption of some of your cadres? Let us hold in on there and save money there. How do you convince the same people that you have to cut down on your travel luxurious plan, a luxurious travel plan, or a travel plan as well as your catering? You don't need to be spending that much money on food and on your traveling. And then how do you tell them you don't need to be spending that much money on advertising? So it's a hard thing, and it's a cultural thing that we need to be able to crack
but I mean,
down on.
all this tells me that, you know, the ANC has a proposal which is, you know, a 0.5% and another half coming up next year, percentage point increase. You have your proposal which actually does away or circumvents the need to increase VAT, and many other political parties share your views. But it does suggest, therefore, there's a distrust between the two most significant parties, the GNU. And if that's the case, where to next?
I mean, the distrust has always been there, even when we weren't in. The Democratic Alliance entered the GNU knowing very well that there's a lot that we don't have in common with the ANC as far as our ideas to take the country forward, particularly on our economic policy positions, right? How we imagine the economy to grow, how we imagine people being able to see more job opportunities, and ultimately being able to put food on the table for themselves and their families, Ashraf. So, but we knew this from the onset. So we did not imagine that this is now going to be a marriage of love. But we knew that it is a marriage that is a must to happen for the best interests of South Africans, who without the Democratic Alliance in the GNU would be living with a government that would see more disastrous outcomes for themselves. And that's why we are still continuing to fight. And fight we must. for the best interest of South Africans. We didn't imagine that it's going to be comfortable, and we don't want it to be comfortable.
Okay.
But we want us to make sure that we're able to play our part to safeguard South Africa.
All right, so let's look at it practically. Your proposal has been shot down. The ANC is their proposal, which you do not support. We now hear that the ANC has been talking to other partners. Action SA has come up front about it to say they have a solution. Also, interestingly enough, no increase in VAT, but they have a solution that they believe that the ANC are going to buy into, which could be rather contradictory, but let's assume that happens. It means the ANC are moving outside of the traditional GNU partners. What does that then say about where does the DA go next?
I mean, it would be odd altogether. Actually, not odd. It would be ridiculous for the ANC to seek the support of people outside of the GNU to pass a GNU budget altogether. Particularly because if we are saying to we are saying to you, we have an alternative fiscal plan that does not include VAT, and you want to take it from somebody else, then the conversation would clearly point to one conclusion, that it is not about VAT. It is not about South Africans, but it is a political ego point that you'd rather concede to somebody else than concede to the DA. Then it is 100% politicking and has nothing to do with the principle on the table, which is making sure that we safeguard South Africans, that we're able to grow their economy, that we're able to make sure they have jobs, that we're able to bridge the inequality gap in this country.
Okay, so you said, the president of the country, Ramaphosa, as well as the president of the DA, in this case ANC and DA, have been chatting, and they may have another chat. I understand that, right? There's a deadline for tomorrow, right? John Steenhuisen, your leader, has already tweeted publicly saying, "Good afternoon, South Africa. The DA will not support the budget in its current form. We will continue to fight for economic growth and jobs." And I mean, that's a tweet from a while back, right? But the point is, then here's the next one. That was on the 12th of March. The next one, which is today, 9 hours ago, in fact. Time is almost up. Last night, the ANC refused to finalize an agreement on growth and spending reforms, imperiling the GNU. The DA will oppose the budget unless and until a written agreement is reached. So at this point in time, what type of agreement would the DA look for if the DA is clearly not interested in any percentage point or half a percentage point VAT increase?
Ashraf, I think I've covered that question, right? John's communication this morning was obviously subsequent to there not being a conclusion last night, which we were supposed to have seen. And also, it was also before the conversation that himself and the ANC's president, Mr. Ramaphosa, had. So which is still on par. And again, our position remains the same. You are able to, Ashraf, get the 60 billion shortfall that has been identified, which I need to remind the nation and you that exists because of 31 years of mismanagement of the public's purse, not because there suddenly became an evaporation of funds out of nowhere because of climate change, but because over the last 31 years, the ANC has been unable to safeguard the nation's purse. And nobody has been held accountable for that, and that's why we find ourselves here. But even though that is the case, we are able to draw up a budget, and we've given them that budget that does not include tax.
All right, we understand that, but clearly you were poles apart philosophically on this issue. For many of us listening, the fundamental issue is what happens next, which is my initial point, right? So the DA has made the point, starting from Helen Zille and others, often in the last 6 months or even longer. There's no way the DA will want to allow and open a door for the MK party and the EFF to be part of government, okay? Are you going to take that risk?
Look, we don't want to do so, and you're correct, because that would culminate in a disaster for a nation. That's pretty much taking a matchstick and setting the nation alight, and we do not want that. However, what we also do not want is to be part and complicit of government's decision-making that does not make sense, that does not seek to ensure that South Africans are guarded from an economic crisis, that are guarded from an inability to put food on the table for themselves and their families, and a situation where the country is doomed altogether as far as the financial decisions of the country is concerned. It is our responsibility as the Democratic Alliance, as a party that made a commitment to South Africans, that we will fight hard to make sure that that we play our part to clamp down on corruption, to clamp down on fruitless, wasteful and irregular expenditure, and to clamp down on any programs of the government that at its heart do not have the best interests of South Africans. And it is our responsibility to continue to fight on that commitment, and that's why we are where we are right now.
Okay, so I hear that, but here's the last thing very quickly, right? I hear your motivation, I hear your concerns. I'm saying to you, there's a chance, there's a very good chance now, that the ANC will partner with other parties to pass this budget tomorrow. Fundamentally, that would constitute a breakdown, because I can't see you being a partner and not being part of passing the budget. So that would then open the door, if you are out of the GNU, open the door to other parties joining in.
That would be the ANC's fault, Ashraf.
No, I'm not saying whose fault is it. I'm saying it could well happen.
Yes, obviously it
are you up for that? Yeah.
It obviously can happen, and because we don't want it to happen, that's why we are fighting as hard as we are, Ashraf. In all honesty, we are fighting as hard as we are to be able to find each other, because we don't want that to happen. But at the same time, we cannot operate in a GNU where it is unworkable altogether, where we are unable to effect the change that we made a commitment to South Africans that we want to. You also need to be mindful of the fact that in the same way that the ANC is only a 39% political party without the majority to bulldoze everybody around, we too are not a majority political party. If we wanted to, if it were up to us 100%, alone, we would have passed the budget a long time ago. We would have been able to table a low VAT increase fiscal alternative. And it's on the basis of the understanding that we are in a coalition, that we are in a negotiation.
Understandable. I tell you what, let's leave it at that. Karabo Kauhau, the DA national spokesperson. I should tell you, by the way, we'll chat now to the ANC's national spokesperson right after this.
Switch to Stream with SABC Plus. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime. Zero subscription fees. Download SABC Plus on Android or iOS and watch the Betway Premier Soccer League, the English Premier League, and the Bundesliga live. You can also catch up with Uzalo, Skim Sam, Generations on demand, and listen to your favorite radio stations live. Ukhozi, Umhlobo Wenene, Radio 2000 and 5FM, all for free. Switch to Stream with SABC Plus now. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime with SABC Plus.
The Hammers want to ease off the pressure with collection of 3 points at the London Stadium to rise from the bottom half.
We picked out Socek, and there is the goal! And he's scored a few this season!
However, the Cherries believe a top half finish will be a good cherry on top.
Crosses towards the back post, looking for Tavernier! Who side-flips it past Vicario! And that is brilliant from Bournemouth!
This is the Premier League. Be part of the thrilling contest between West Ham United FC and AFC Bournemouth on Saturday, 5 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
I suppose you could say, is it ever a good time for partners to have a debate and argument about whether their VAT should be increased or not, right? So we've heard the DA point of view, and do listen to the podcast. It should be up pretty shortly, safm.co.za. Then check out the National Pulse to find all the interviews that we've done on the show in that frame, right? But let's get the ANC perspective now. So the national spokesperson of the ANC's, Mahlengu Bengu Motsiri, appreciate your time once again. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse on a day where clearly the nation's pulses are racing.
Absolutely. But we have every confidence that the parties will find one another and that the budget will be passed. It's important that we acknowledge that these are new conditions under which a country's budget is being passed. And so there will really be a need for compromises, and the ANC believes it has done that, but has been met with demands that are not related to the budget, but are more related to the country's policies. which are founded on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And so this back and forth that's taking place.
Okay, I just want to check if we've got you still there. Okay, we'll reconnect with Matlenko Bengu Motsiri in a moment. I mean, she made the point that she believes she's got every confidence that a deal will be struck. And in this case, I would think a deal will be struck between the ANC and the DA. Yes, of course, there's other parties, but the most significant agreement or disagreement to look out for in the next few hours has got to be the ANC and the DA. If they don't agree with each other, then what? Right, we do have Matlenko Bengu Motsiri back with us. Right, so you made the point earlier on about you're very confident that an agreement will be made. And I made the point in your absence that the agreement we're looking out for is the GNU agreement between the ANC and the DA, right? I understand that the president of the ANC and the DA also met today, right? Can you tell us where you're at regarding, I mean, how close are you to an agreement?
We are close. You know, a number of parties in the GNU are broadly in support, in fact, are in support of the budget. Obviously, the main contentious issue being the 0.5 VAT increase. And we have explained our position as the ANC that for every rise in expenditure, we need to make sure that the country has the revenue that is based to be able to fund development and to fund even the economic growth programs themselves that create jobs, that those are funded. And so we have explained our position, and there's no party that has put and installed a number of pro-poor policies than the ANC. We know this too well, but the country does need to generate some revenue to be able to finance development.
Okay, now the ANC, I mean, the DA, as per my chat with Karabo Khao just now, said they have an alternative, right? Why is their alternative not palatable if it means dropping the 0.5 percentage point VAT increase?
If you could just reiterate the question.
I was saying the DA says they have a proposal which is to drop the 0.5 percentage point VAT increase, and they have their own way of working around the compensation around that. Why would that not be acceptable to the ANC, considering that the opposition to the VAT increase has come from both left and right of the ANC? It's almost unprecedented.
I must also just indicate, and trying to respond to your question, that the DA has been making demands that are less related to the budget. And I think that they have lost the moral high ground, because when they entered the government of national unity, all those that signed the statement of intent did commit. There is a clause there that commits to continue with the policy trajectory that is currently there in South Africa. And so to go back on that is something that is quite questionable, morally questionable. But
what have they done? I mean, what have they asked for that gets you to say on air that they've lost the moral high ground?
Well, if, for example, a number of transformation-related legislation, they have not supported it. Not just the Expropriation Act, the Bela Act, the NHI Act, all of those are redress policies. They have also, of course, been in public on record indicating that they would want to have a say in the foreign policy. That's part of the policy. The foreign policy is strictly from the Constitution. It's not from the ANC, strictly from the Constitution and the Freedom Charter. And of course, the Constitution is also founded on the injunction of the Freedom Charter. So I'm not certain that is negotiating in good faith. I would not want to also jeopardize the kinds of conversations that are taking place between the president and counterparts in the other political parties. But we do note the fact that there has been shifting of goalposts by the DA. Let me also mention that the reason we know it is not going to be possible to compensate for a drop of the 0.5% is because the proposals, the alternatives that the DA shared with the ANC, that alternative is already accommodated in the budget. So it is not a new proposal. It's one of the measures in which we're managing the finances. So there isn't any novel proposal that has been presented.
All right. So let's just say, in the worst case scenario, that between the ANC's position and the DA's position, a deal is not struck. There's been talk all day that other parties will come into the fold for you to get that budget passed, including Action SA. They've been very public about that, right? Is that now very realistic?
Well, I would imagine that option is on the table. There are no options that are not on the table. But I must also just hasten to add that the ANC is committed to the government of national unity. When we started this process and drew up the statement of intent, it was because we had to do this. We had to accept that we have the 40% of national vote share. And we had to accept that the people of South Africa want us to work together with other parties. And so we remain committed to the GNU, but we are not agreeing with the DA, or rather the DA is not agreeing with us in respect of deriving more revenue in order to finance development.
Okay, so here's the last thing. In your point about remaining committed to the GNU, and yet yourself and the DA disagree fundamentally on this issue, how are you going to put the two of you together if the DA doesn't play ball with you, meaning that both are committed to the GNU, but are we now facing possibly the closest ever we've had since May 29 to actually seeing a fallout of the GNU between the ANC and the DA?
I would agree that it is definitely the closest ever. If you look at the number of disagreements, they were not of this scale and magnitude, such as the debate around the Bella Act and the delayed implementation of it, and ANC accommodating all of those requests. So in as far as whether this may be signaling the end of the GNU, I can only say that is, that ball is in the court of the Democratic Alliance. It is the Democratic Alliance, after all, that said that this is a deal breaker. They will leave the GNU. In a letter that was sent to the president, and this letter was released to members of the media. It is not the ANC that has made given such ultimatums.
And very quickly, are you prepared to go along with the deal breaker?
With the deal breaker, we are prepared to get the budget passed and to use all available constitutional means to ensure that this budget is passed. And we are not wedded to our relationship with the DA at the expense of the need to ensure that there is a budget that is going to finance all the things that we've said in the State of the Nation address, and of course also in our respective manifestos.
Okay. Let's leave it at that. Lots, I expect, will happen in the next few hours, and I'm certainly going to keep an eye on the pulse of the nation, even when I'm off air. So we appreciate your time, Mahlengi Bengu Motsiri, the ANC's national spokesperson. I mean, here's the bottom line. You know that old movie about I love it when a plan comes together. What's the A plan or the A game? Well, if it doesn't, you'd have to find another plan, and we're about to find out exactly what that means. Let's get the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the South African Revenue Services has announced that it has collected 1.85 trillion rand in tax revenue during the 2024-25 financial year. Motorists will be paying substantially less at the pumps from Wednesday as fuel prices decrease in April due to lower oil prices and a stronger rand. The price drops take place at midnight tonight. And Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema has warned ministers against dozing off during meetings, attributing their lack of attentiveness to indulgence and an absence of self-control. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound queuing towards Boysons. In Bedfordview, the N3 southbound queuing towards Van Buren Road, and the N3 northbound queuing on the link to the N12 East at Kiluli's interchange. In KZN, the N2 southbound queuing towards Joyner Road due to a crash on the opposite carriageway. On the N2 northbound, a truck crash reported at Prospection, and that's causing delays. And the M7 eastbound has a ramp closure with no access to Mbilo Road. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards the N2 highway, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Lower Church Street, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, let's talk sport. To me, there's two big issues in sport, right?
Yeah.
Which one are you going to go with?
I'm going to start off with cricket. It's news actually just coming in where Cricket South Africa have confirmed that Proteas white ball head coach Rob Walter has stepped down from his role due to personal reasons. Walter has been at the helm from 2023, helping South Africa reach their first ever T20 final in 2024, and also saw the 50-over side reach the semis of the Men's Cricket World Cup in 2023. He also saw the national side in 36 one-day internationals and 31 T20 internationals with series wins against Netherlands, Australia, Ireland and Pakistan. Meanwhile, in netball, former Spar Proteas captain Bongiwe Msomi is set to be unveiled as the new Gauteng Golden Fireballs assistant coach. This is ahead of the 2025 Telkom Netball League. Now, Msomi has joined the team in camp at the University of Witwatersrand, and Msomi says that she's very happy that her coaching journey is starting to take shape.
I'm super excited. I think at this stage, I just feel really honored that I can just see where my coaching journey is going, and I love that this massive opportunity is giving me a step again, to take the next step in my coaching career. I really enjoy coaching, and I think up to now, I've been quite impressed with, how I took on coaching and how I'm moving forward with it, and how every step of the way to me is important, and how I constantly make sure of that I don't skip any of it. This is giving me a chance to really get onto the league in a different aspect, different position, and hopefully really play my part. I think Gauteng is really a massive province.
Well, then moving on to football action on the go. Mamelodi Sundowns are currently leading 1-0, 77 minutes into the game against AES Tunis. It is the first leg of the CAF Champions League quarter-final, and that goal was scored by Peter Shalulile in the 54th minute. We'll definitely keep you up to date with the action at Loftus Stadium. Meanwhile, Stellenbosch is gearing up for one of their biggest games in the club's history. This is when they host Egypt's Zamalek in the first leg of the African Confederations Cup quarter-final clash at the Cape Town Stadium tomorrow. The Maroons will be looking to upset the competition's holders, who are chasing back-to-back titles. And head coach Steve Barker says that the competition has really stretched the team, especially in terms of growing.
There's a lot of different words one can use. It's been challenging, it's been exciting, it's been a highly motivating type of experience for us to push ourselves to our limits. We started off not too well by losing our first two matches, but bounced back really well. And to find ourselves in a quarterfinal against a big team like Zamalek, it's just really something that we can look forward to and be proud of what we've achieved thus far.
Elsewhere, Manchester City have been hit with the blow with news that striker Erling Haaland will be out of action for up to 7 weeks. This is after suffering an ankle injury. The 24-year-old picked up the injury in City's FA Cup quarter-final win at Bournemouth over the weekend. And here's manager Pep Guardiola.
Sometimes there are years that these kind of things happen all season. So I would say that could not be differently at the end of the season. So. Yeah, but all the injuries that we had this season, so sorry for them and for Erling as well. So, and could recover speedy as quick as possible and come back.
Well, meanwhile, Manchester United head coach Ruben Amorim says that he told Bruno Fernandes that he will not allow him to leave the season. Club captain Fernandes, who signed a contract extension until 2027 last August, has been United's star player of the season. Over the weekend, reports emerged linking the 30-year-old with the move to Real Madrid, and Amorim is saying That is definitely not happening at all. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for
Well,
now.
not quite that, Sid. I want to know. So yesterday, I was not here because I was
Yes.
celebrating Eid, and you then had a vote. What do you call it? Your pulse? What's it called?
Fan pulse.
A fan pulse.
It's
What is
called
your
a
fan
fan
pulse
pulse.
about? I don't want to miss it.
So basically, it's a burning question about anything that is big in the world of sports in terms of any sports whatsoever. And I felt yesterday the big one was based on what Jake White was saying. He basically feels that there must be a clause that bans overseas-based players from playing for the Springboks. And he even went outright to say that if players want to be a Springbok player, they must play in South Africa. And so I had a poll running, and 67% they disagree with him. They basically say no, there is no way that we can have players that play for the Springboks and they don't have international experience. And I fully agree.
What's his motivation? I mean, why is he saying what he's
So
saying?
basically, he's talking from a point of how South African teams are or franchises are doing in the URC and the different competitions, and he feels that when they play against some of these teams from abroad, they do have South African players in them, and therefore the South African franchises don't do as well as they should. And he just feels like it will strengthen the franchises at home to have these international players. And
Well, he sounds like a person who's looking after the franchise problem and trying to make the Springboks the franchise problem.
Yeah.
So
Basically.
if there's a franchise problem, solve the franchise problem. The Springboks have another issue, and you can't sort out one with the other. But just a quick one, very, very quickly. When he was the coach of the Springboks, as he was, right, did he pick players from abroad?
Of course.
Of course he did. Okay. More sport in an hour.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard, to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Thank you for tuning in to today's business feature, proudly sponsored by CFI, a leading trading app now available in South Africa. Download it now. Visit cfi.trade today.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Get to those numbers then with Makwe Masilela, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good to connect. Local and global news, you have it all.
Yes, afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Ashraf, for Q1, the local bourse was up 5%, but the US S&P 500 fell 4.6%. And the second quarter, which started today, may bring with it as much uncertainty and volatility for market participants as the first quarter of the year. And to date, there has been very little clarity on what and who these tariffs will target. And we saw the Eurozone March inflation dipping to 2.2% as US tariffs looms, and our March manufacturing sector reading the ABSA PMI rose by 4 points to 8.7, but still in contraction for a fifth month in a row. And this time around, we were lifted or held by export sales. And we are also watching the national budget developments. And Ashraf, in terms of economic uncertainty, some investors follow a literal golden rule, that is, buy it. We saw that gold is up 18% so far this year, and gold is viewed as a safe haven asset for lots of reasons. Its value has generally increased over time, and it can, but not always, be a hedge against inflation, and its inverse relationship with the dollar can counterbalance currency fluctuations. And the general idea is that gold's relative stability can help preserve wealth when market volatility and geopolitical risk are on the rise. Today, we see gold is up a mere 0.1% at 3,125, but platinum is down 2% at 988. Oil prices are steady, but still near 5-week highs as threats of secondary tariffs on Russia and Iran oil buyers counteracted worries about the impact of a trade war on global growth. As we said, it is flat at $74 a barrel, and global markets still worried about Trump's announcement set for tomorrow, with the US down, Europe and us were up. The JSE is up 0.9%, but the rand is down 0.5% at 18.40 against the US dollar, 23.74 against the pound, and 19.89 against the euro.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Makwe. Makwe Masilela will be back with us again tomorrow, right? Okay, we're going to take your calls, not quite now, but very, very shortly. And I want to know what you think about the conversations that I had with the representative from the DA as well as the representative from the African National Congress regarding the issue of the budget and will it be passed tomorrow or not. And there's huge implications around that, okay? Let's get back to certainly one of the key themes that we've had on today's show is the issue really of justice for... In fact, we'll get to that in a moment, justice for Tswetswe. We'll get to that right after this.
This business feature is sponsored by CFI, an authorized financial services provider, a global leader in online trading now available in South Africa. Visit cfi.trade today.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Trade like a champion with CFI. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit CFI.trade today. CFI Financial Markets LLC is a Category 1 licensed broker by the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority. Trading involves high risk.
CFI, empower yourself.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Just listening to that Oliver Dixon promo has got me remembering that Oliver hosted the show yesterday, so thumbs up to him for holding the fort while I was off for the day, but also listen to the show tonight, 10 to 12, as it does, Monday to Thursday here on SAFM. Right, let's get your thoughts. I want to feel your pulse on some of the biggest issues, right? What is it? Is it the issue of gender-based violence? Is it the issue of the budget speech and the GNU hanging by a thread? Warren in Stutterheim, go for it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and team. Ashraf, with regard to this gender-based violence, a lady phoned through. Now, I am of the opinion if you carry out a referendum, you'll find that the vast majority of women, who are the majority over men in this country, will vote castration for anybody who rapes. First rape, doesn't matter. Women, children, men, and children is man and female. Any rape in any way.
Okay, so you agree with that. So, often there's been talk about, the death penalty, and, it's been an ongoing conversation, and it's against the Constitution, so it's not going to happen now, right? But you're saying castration is
yes.
the route to go.
That's not the death penalty. Castration isn't. It lowers, what I understand, and the hearings overseas had them, it lowers the man's sexual drive.
Okay, and that. Warren, thanks for putting that on the agenda. In fact, which countries have done that, and how has it worked out? Done well? Temba in Kebera, hello.
Hi, Ashraf, how are you?
I'm good indeed. Go for it, Temba.
Look, man, let's get the country out of this misery, whether the GNU will survive tomorrow or not. The GNU will survive tomorrow. I'll tell you why, for two reasons. If I add the FF, it will be number 3. One, the ANC leaders cannot afford to have GNU dissolved at this time when America is laser focused on South Africa and on them as individuals. Certainly, if GNU falls apart, they know they will be attracting individual sanctions from the United States of America. And that means a whole lot of changes in their lifestyle and how they live life today.
Okay, so that's from the ANC point of view. Do you also agree from a DA point of view that they don't really want the door open for the EFF and the MK party, right?
No, that's their mandate. That's their core mandate this time around. That they cannot lose the handle of government in South Africa, the strategic point for both South Africa, DA, but also internationally, the adversaries of the African National Congress. They have their men inside the room, and they would not want them to get out of that room.
So what deal is going to? So if you've stated the case why they will stick with each other. They will argue, they will fight, but they will make a deal. What do you think is the deal maker then?
No. The deal maker will be the ANC. You had the ANC is beginning to give away the 0.5 percentage publicly, and that's what is going to happen. The ANC is going to give away. It's going to drop the tax of that increase. And the DA will go to stick with the GNU, and everybody else walks home happily. Because the ANC has also a fight to fight with its own alliance partners and its communities and its voters. With this 0.5%, it will be an egg in their face if the ANC can be seen as pushing tax increases while South African economy and unemployment is at this high.
Temba, thanks for adding your voice to the issues that impact the national pulse. In this case here, the issue of the GNU. Isaac in DR, go for it, Isaac.
Good afternoon, Chef. I don't know where to start. You see, me and my wife, since 2008, we started business. We started our business. We're selling the construction equipment. We started with selling PPEs, and then we also went up to open a second business, which is we're selling organic foods, and then now we are venturing into bolts and nuts. Yeah. But my issues, the red tape that the government put in places to start to operate in a business in this country is so difficult. For over 15 years now, we struggle in and out. We struggle. We don't get help. When you look at the requirements of the government in these companies that the government state that are there to assist for the growth of the SMS, the red tape that they put in is so.
How have you tried to navigate the red tape then, Isaac?
I can't break through. Sometimes you manage to register the CIDB, and then after 2 years you can't get a job. Then you deregister, then you start again, on and off like that. That's so frustrating. You can't grow. However, I'm grateful to the people that are passing through our doors and get inside and pick up things that we're waiting for rent and mouth to mouth. We hardly survive. To be honest, it's very difficult to break through that.
South Africa has got to respond to that. I mean, there was this World Bank index of sorts a few days ago, and they said South Africa, of 49 countries, not the whole world, 49 countries measured, is the most difficult country to do business in. Okay, and then I had a chat with Michael Jordan, who's the former CEO of FNB, right? And please listen to that podcast, check it out from last week, and he didn't concur with everything, but he does concede that to a large degree, South Africa has got to be more flexible in terms of, lowering the bar for people to get into business, more so if we accept that business is the way that keeps people out of unemployment.
Yeah, especially, last 2 weeks ago, we got guys from the SABS walking into our shop say the goods that we are selling are not SAB standard. They want us to remove them. And then I'm saying, but who are suppliers? Can we go to supplier? Then you set up this with our supplier first, then we can take it to us, that. And then these suppliers on their own themselves, they also have the rates that they put, like you want to buy 10 pairs, 15 pairs. The big companies, so they'll tell you, no, you need to buy 300 pairs of that, you need to buy 400 pairs of that. So they just make it difficult for us to operate in this country, besides the government alone.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't know where we can help, but if there's anybody who can assist, please, we're looking for something. We are not sleeping, begging, but we just need somebody to
I'm
help
so
us
sorry,
as well.
Isaac. I'm really, really so sorry about the difficulties that you experience, and many others experience the same difficulties. But thanks for raising that, because often when we speak about ideological issues, we tend to forget the human story. And I mean, Isaac's is a human story. Mike in Newlands, go for it.
Sure, yeah, well, of course, it all comes down to ideology. That's why the poor gentleman is suffering so much. It's not about how the country is run and how to run a business. It's the ideology of the ANC, which is not a political party. I know we keep referring to it as such. It's a criminal syndicate. And I'll tell you why.
Mike, you can't say that all the time. I'm just trying
I'm
to tell
going
you.
to say that.
But you're boring. I'm being honest with you. You're
Okay, all right.
really boring.
You
know
let me
why? You
demonstrate-
see,
all right.
no, Mike, I want to tell you something. I may even agree with you, or I may not. But I can tell you now, as someone who understands communications, if you make a solid point, you'll get us thinking, okay? But if in every conversation, if you repeat the same thing all the time, believe me, nobody listens to you. We get the feedback from the audience. They don't listen to you because your default is you give one story only. But if you say something that's profound, it's like, wow, that's great. Even if we don't agree with you, you get us all learning about something, and I'm for that. So I'm giving you some advice too.
Okay, thank you. No, I'm actually accepting it. I'm taking it on board, and I have to say what you say does make a lot of sense. But I suppose you just got to give me some little frustration, like your previous caller. And I wanted to refer to a story that I hope you will still cover today, and that is the fact that with our massive crime in our country, 26 policemen, 7 vehicles, 20 court officials turned up to deliver one summons to one person called Bradley Conradi, who's been investigating at Fort Hare University with corruption. Now, apparently, he's found out some very high-profile corruption along with a lady called Sarah Berger, and they have uncovered this corruption at Fort Hare, and it took the police 26 people to deliver this. So obviously, they've uncovered a criminal syndicate somewhere, and it's highly connected, well-connected people. And I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, because we have a crime rate in this country that's out of control, and it somehow doesn't seem right that we can afford 26 policemen, 7 vehicles, and 20 court officials to deliver one summons, because obviously what they are doing is intimidating these 2 forensic lawyers. So that's my point.
On that
Thank
point,
you.
I mean, I'll get Keys and Temba to look into that story. And I mean, you're right. You know, and I completely agree with you that crime undermines everything we want to do in our country. And how we can't get a lid on crime in 30 years, or at least 20 years, is just absolutely shameful. It's a blight on our country. So I agree with you. If resources are misplaced, then you've made a very good point today, Mike. Appreciate that. Let's get to another one. Pumzile in Humansdorp. Go for it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon. What's your point?
Yeah, Ashraf, I just pray that the ANC has actually done its homework to engage with other political parties and convinced them the importance of voting in favor, in fact, of the budget tomorrow. You know, these political parties must understand as to they are putting the country in an unpalatable predicament, wherein if that budget is not actually supported, with what are we going to operate as the country in the absence of an approved budget? That is the point. We've got health, we've got education, we've got social grants for the old people and the kids. Where is that money going to come from if the budget is not approved?
But that's what we need to find out. The GA says they've got a solution. The ANC clearly doesn't agree with them. Actually, SA now say they've got some solution as well, and the ANC doesn't agree.
Yeah, let's wait and see who's going to support it tomorrow. But lastly, I want to thank you very much, you know, for bringing Mike from Newlands to order. Because really, whatever he comes up with, it's stale every time. It's stale. It's attacking the ANC left, right, and center. Thank you for bringing him, in fact, to order. Thank you very much.
Well, he did say he may take my advice, so appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, listen, we must accept the fact that if we speak to 20 or 30 callers in a given 3-hour session, there's no way I want to speak to people that agree with me every day, or I agree with them. We have the diversity, and that diversity is reflected on this platform. But it's important that people make comments. They must back it up number one, and don't repeat the same things all the time, because you do lose the impact of making a very important point. On the other hand, if you come up with that original point and you want to make it a point and get us thinking, then you know what? It would be profound. I have no doubt about it. It works. I should know that. Right, Cameron wants to talk about small business. Go for it, Cameron. Cameron, do I have you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, go for it. You're live on the air.
Yeah, just also 2 quick points. Well done, Ashraf, for addressing Mike. He's a propagandist, and I think you put him in his place, and hopefully when he calls again, he will, just engage in a debate and not become a propagandist. Secondly, your caller who was raising issues, his difficulties with his getting his business going and lacking support. I'm a public rep myself. I want to advise that whichever province he is, he must knock on the door of the MEC, if he does, the Provincial Minister of Economic Development or MEC in his province, and then also escalate to the National Minister. I think our MECs have to be accountable, and if he's frustrated, he should, go to those the leaders of the political parties to which the MECs belong. I'm from the ANC, so if there's an MEC who doesn't respond.
Oh, I think we may have just lost that. All right, so I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happened, Cameron. We've just lost you at exactly 5 o'clock. But I think I got your point, particularly about the advice you're giving to the caller originally around entrepreneurship. And I think it's an important one. I would do the same thing as you. Go to the political leader of that region and say, come on, guys, something's got to give you. Right, let's get the news. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, more than R1 trillion in tax revenue and a drop in fuel prices. Good day to you. The Revenue Service has announced that it's collected 1.85 trillion rand in tax revenue during the 2024-25 financial year. It notes that the revenue exceeds the budget estimate by 8.8 billion rand. SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter.
A net revenue of 1.885.1 trillion is 6.6% higher than prior year and 8.8 billion above the revised estimate. We believe in the current environment a very credible outcome delivered by SARS. These results do not come about by themselves. They come about because of the hard work, the focus, the diligence of 13,000 men and women whom we are privileged to lead.
Motorists will be paying substantially less at the pumps as fuel prices drop at midnight tonight. The Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources says 93 and 95 octane petrol will go down by 58 cents and 72 cents a litre respectively. Diesel will also see a drop of 83 and 85 cents a litre depending on the grade. Paraffin at retail level will drop by R1.14 a litre. The department's Robert Make.
The reason for these decreases are the lower oil prices and stronger rand against the dollar during the period under review. The minister has approved the annual adjustment to the transport tariffs and will range from 0 cents per litre in Zone 1A to 7.5 cents a litre in Zone 14C, which is in Mutare in Limpopo. This will mean that the fuel prices changes will be different in the 54 magisterial district zones.
The National Police Commission has tasked the head of the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Investigations Unit to oversee the ongoing investigation into the alleged rape of a 7-year-old girl in the Eastern Cape. She was allegedly raped last year and to date no arrests have been made. Police spokesperson Atlende Mate says Major General Mancheke Lekele is currently meeting with the investigating team to ensure that the chain of evidence in this case is properly preserved.
General Lekele will meet with persons of interest and key stakeholders, such as the NPA, to ensure justice and the finalization of the matter. Bringing criminals to book and putting perpetrators of crime behind bars remains a key priority for the SAPS. We assure the nation that justice will prevail and those that are found to be guilty of any offense will be brought to book.
The case of 3 men accused of a truck hijacking has been postponed to next month for further investigation by a court outside Polokwane in Limpopo. The accused, a liquor outlet business owner, his accomplice and a truck driver, allegedly hijacked the truck, which was carrying liquor worth more than 1 million rand en route to Botswana. Police spokesperson Stephen Takeng.
During October 2024, a truck transporting liquor to Botswana was allegedly hijacked near Robles Bridge, port of entry, by two suspects. Victims were later abandoned in Mokopane bushes. Apparently, the driver colluded with the suspects to make as if it was a hijacking. Liquor worth 1.2 million was robbed. The driver and crew were rewarded with cash for their involvement. 3 suspects were arrested and granted bail of 2,000 rand each.
The Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema has warned ministers against dozing off during meetings, attributing their lack of attentiveness to indulgence and an absence of self-control. He didn't spell out what exactly he meant, but local media have interpreted this as referring to excessive alcohol drinking and late-night partying. The president warned that such behavior risked exposing state secrets and delayed service delivery to the public. The top story: SARS has announced that it's collected 1.85 trillion rand in tax revenue during the 2024-25 financial year. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
In sports, the Sawa Sundowns claim 1-0 win over Esperance. Walter steps down from his role as white ball coach, and countdown to clay court begins. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Albertina Sisulu Road westbound in Maritzburg has a crash reported before the N1 highway. In KZN, the M7 queuing towards South Coast Road and the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg queuing towards Market Road. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound slow moving at Samora Machel and slow moving traffic reported through the Greenpoint area. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So did I hear that story correctly about Zambia, where they're going to clamp down on, parliamentarians dozing off, falling asleep in parliament? And the reason could be manifold, giving up state secrets, they said perhaps alcohol-induced, whatever it is. But I'm suggesting that if they're falling off to sleep in parliament, I would seriously suggest that they turn that around and look at the people who are giving those speeches. How long are they speaking for? What are they saying? And how are they coming across? That should keep them awake, don't you think so? Right, lots more to talk about. We should talk, there's been a new development regarding electricity where the Minister of Electricity has announced that government will reach out to the private sector about the construction of transmission lines through the Independent Transmission Program. We'll talk about that to Chris Yelland shortly. But the issue that we spoke about earlier on around gender-based violence and the many marches that have taken place today nationwide is certainly an area that we are focusing on. So let's take it a step further. Women for Change, in coalition with multi-sectoral stakeholders, including activists, businesses and civil society organizations, will gather at the union buildings next week, in fact, to demand that the South African government declare gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster. Now, who's going to disagree with that? Bulelwa Adonis is the spokesperson for Women for Change. Appreciate you coming on the National Pulse, Bulelwa. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I mean, it's an interesting one, you're saying, to have it declared a national disaster. I would think that's been the most delayed proclamation we've had in our country for years, isn't it? It's the most obvious thing.
Absolutely. I'm so thankful you used those exact words, because it is the most obvious thing, and it's actually quite sad that it has to get to this point, that this hasn't been an obvious thing a long time ago.
So why do you think, if it's that obvious, you know that, I know that every time we hear these stories, I was saying earlier on that if I did a copy and paste of an interview I would have done with someone around, a young girl being raped 10 years ago, and I played it today, it would be almost copy and paste of what's happening today. There are no significant shifts in behavior and what happens, and the and convictions and lack of convictions. Why do you think, is it apathy, or is it simply a case of completely out of our control?
You know what? That's such an important question, because you're right. It will be copy and paste. Had you spoken about a story from 10 years ago about a girl being raped, because honestly, nothing has changed. In fact, things are just the same. We're just being highlighted with, stories that trend as the current story that we all know about happening right now. I think it's just there's so many factors to this. It's the fact that we're selective with our activism. It's the fact that we choose our moment when we are aggravated and outraged as a country, and then it dies down. There isn't that consistency in terms of putting pressure on policymakers, on our government, taking it upon ourselves as society to say, enough is enough, and we're not taking injustice sitting down anymore. I think it's broader than looking to one party to fixing the situation. Understanding and recognizing it as a pandemic, has so many factors to do with this. So I think there's so many factors inclusive of this, but I think that, like you said, to you and I, it's an obvious thing, but clearly because of lack of accountability, clearly because of the normalization of injustice and unsafety, it clearly is not to most people, or to some.
Well, notwithstanding my initial point about it seems so obvious to me, you make the point now that it's an epidemic, right? What's the data case for calling this a pandemic?
Sorry, please repeat that.
I was saying, in terms of you calling this a national disaster, right? What does the data suggest to support you describing it as a pandemic? And you've just done that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so with regards to what I said about declaring this a pandemic, which we are so prominent on, is that every day in South Africa, at least 15 women are murdered, and then 117 women report rape cases to the police. So that on itself just gives you a small picture of why we say that it is a pandemic. That's just a summary, the fact that we're rape capital of the world. Some statistics that maybe I have right in front of me from April 2023 and March 2024 is 5,578 women and 1,656 children were killed, and an increase of 33.8% in femicide statistics had risen. So this is just a summary from a databasis of why we say that GBVF is a pandemic.
Now, not that you could ever support what has happened, but when we talk about these numbers, and then organizations, I'm not talking about government, when they say, well, a lot of it is a reflection of the fallout from apartheid, then they'll talk about poverty and inequality, and the fact that there's absent fathers or absent parents who are at work and their children are left alone. All of those things point to a legacy of apartheid. Is that a solid argument 30 years plus into democracy?
I think that can be inclusive of the argument. I mean, there's so many factors that were involved in apartheid that we still see today. The inequality, we still see certain factors and symptoms of that today. But we can't only point to that. When you're saying is it a solid argument or not, I think that we can include it in the argument. But in general, GBVF is a pandemic that long existed for many centuries, and it's something that unfortunately is going to be existent long before, especially if it's in the state that it is right now, where what seems like reality to us, those who are fighting, those of us like an organization like us that want GBVF to be declared a pandemic and a national disaster, is because we recognize that it's not taken seriously enough.
You made the point that ever so often something sparks off, and there's this this uproar and this outrage, and then there's some action taken. Would you say that in this case here, the issue of it now becoming the latest one, the 7-year-old child being raped, that would have been the catalyst for you going to the union buildings, or is it completely unrelated, although you understand why?
For us in particular, in regards to why we're going to the union buildings on the 11th, this is the existence of Women for Change, if I can put it that way. Obviously, I will say, in regards to society, is definitely playing the role of a catalyst in terms of shining the spotlight in not just what's happening in our schools or to our children specifically, but to the pandemic that is GBVF. For us in particular, we had this in mind long before this particular case, but it just paints a picture of the reality, because you need to understand organizations like ourselves, these are common stories. This is what we get in our DMs on a daily basis. So this is our reality every day.
All right, so let's then move forward about your plan. You know, you're going to gather at the union buildings. How many other organizations are going to join you? You've made a call to, civil society, business, other activists. Maybe you're calling government to join you as well in the queue. I don't know, right? What are you expecting coming out of that? And then not just, delivering a memo, for example. What's going to happen next?
What's going to happen, you mean, on the particular day?
Yeah, well, on the day and then beyond that. I mean, how are you going to ensure that it moves beyond yes, we've got it, we'll look into the memo, we'll investigate it, we'll leave no stone unturned, and, nothing happens. What can you do to effect an actual response immediately from government?
That's such an important question. If anything, what I'm hearing from you is, how do we go from basically like social media activism to actual concrete change that we can see, in reality? And on the particular day, of course, we are still getting RSVPs in terms of which organizations will be joining us on the day, which activists. There are a few that have mentioned, but honestly, off the top of my head, with all the things going on, I can't even think of all of them right now, but we definitely have gotten a good response right now. I know that from the community, we've gotten over 600 RSVPs from just normal community members, but our initial plan for the day is that, like you said, it doesn't die down on the day, that it's so much bigger than just handing over our petition, which has over 100,000 signatures, to somebody in the presidency. Hopefully we'll be speaking to the president or the deputy at the very least on the day. But our intention is for all that has been promised, that like things like the NSP, that the intention behind such things, that the GBVF Council, that they may be brought to life. The intention is that we get a response back immediately. I think we were giving them a very short time frame to respond, and in that response, we hope that there are policy changes inclusive of that response.
Okay.
So I think our pressure will come in forms like that on the day.
So, last week it's been a long time coming about, ensuring the National Sex Offenders Registry is made public. You comment on that, but also the Minister of Basic Education has also commented on that in terms of what happens if a sex offender is a teacher, right? What happens next? And I see Boza Build One South Africa in support of, teachers never being allowed to teaching at all. And the fourth one we've had from a caller early on to say, well, forget the death penalty, at least castrate them if they've been convicted first time round of rape. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure.
It's a lot, I know.
That's it's so much to take in. You mentioned so many different factors. Sure, off the top of my head, I think we need to ask ourselves why organizations like ourselves may push for like the what do you call it, the public access of Offenders Act, the registry is because I think that places like South Africa, we've become a safe haven for predators. I think that we need to no longer look at things from the perspective of how can we make things better for the perpetrator. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but to put it roughly, since you you did also say that what you said to me was a boatload. So to comment on it from a minor perspective, I would be doing your
that'll be part of your think tank moving forward and ensuring at some stage that government listens to your actual demand. Because I think every one of us, no matter who we are, ethnicity, race group, political party, philosophy, religion, we're on side on that. I have no doubt that we should be on side on that. So thank you for your time. Much appreciate that. That's Bulelwa Adonis, the Women for Change spokesperson, ahead of a call for organizations, all organizations, in fact, to gather at the union buildings next week. And why? To demand that the government declares gender-based violence and femicide a national disaster. So would you support that? You know, a national disaster for gender-based violence and femicide? Yes or no? And comment as well if you wish to call in. I'll take your call somewhere around 5:45 onwards. 086 000 2032. Let's talk power, as in electricity, after this.
Algerian giants, the People's Club, plan to impress their home fans with victory before traveling to Mzansi, while the Buccaneers want to triumph away and complete the party in Orlando in the second leg. This is the first leg quarterfinal clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the incredible action of African football. MC Alger battles it out with Orlando Pirates on Tuesday, 1 April at 9 p.m. live on SABC 1, SABC radio stations and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's get into other issues. By the way, anybody wish to comment on my point that I made earlier on? That regarding April Fool's Day, I mean, besides the rather silly pranks that goes on every single day, well, every year around this time, that's one thing. But particularly in the news space, that it should be like banned, that the newsrooms and social media that deals with news, in particular, like obviously Twitter, but even, you know, nowadays there's a proliferation on TikTok and Instagram and everywhere else, that when it comes to newsy things, it must be banned from carrying these as April Fool's stories, because I think they distort and they create massive confusion. And there's a thing we call every other day of the year for that, we call it fake news. And do we really need to like actively engage in fake news as the way to do it, even if it's for half a day? No, I don't like it, and I want to know whether you have a thought on that as well. Right, nothing fake, by the way, regarding the plans from the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Josiento Ramagopa, around some plans he's got to rope in the independent transmission program. Let's find out more about that with regard to the private sector with Chris Allen, who attended the media briefing today. Chris, appreciate your time. As always, you're on the National Pulse.
Hey, good afternoon. Good to be on radio with you and your listeners.
Much appreciated. Right. So you attended the briefing. What did the minister say?
Well, he really, gave background to a new ministerial determination in terms of the new Electricity Regulation Amendment Act for really harnessing the energy of the private sector in the transmission sector. Now, look, up to now, the IPP office of the former DMRE and now the Department of Electricity and Energy have been handling procurements through ministerial determinations in the field of generation. In other words, solar PV and wind power, gas to power generation projects. And this is the first foray, you might say, into the field of transmission projects. And it's really driven by the fact that about 400 billion rands of investment is required in this transmission sector, and government and Eskom's balance sheets are constrained, and they simply cannot finance all of this, nor can they roll it out in the timescales required. And they're going to need to harness the private sector, come to the table to assist in not only the financing, but also the project management and the rollout in a completely new business model, which is the build, own, operate, and transfer business model, really under, you might call them concessions, where transmission corridors are concessioned out, similar to what you see in road tolls.
What is your understanding of the motivation for that compared to the existing quo, at this point in time?
Yeah, look, it's simply, firstly, a financial motivation, because Eskom doesn't have the wherewithal, the capital resources and the money. It's highly indebted, and government is also fiscally constrained. The private sector is awash with liquidity and money, and really it's a case of bringing the private sector on board, not to do this exclusively by the private sector, but to do this firstly in partnership, in public-private partnerships, and secondly, in parallel with initiatives that Eskom is undertaking, or shall I call it not so much Eskom, but the new National Transmission Company of South Africa. So it's not to replace, the NTCSA activities in this field, but to supplement them, because if you look at the fact that 14,000 kilometers of new high voltage, and I'm talking here about 275 kV, 400 kV, 765 kV, high voltage transmission lines have to be built. There is no way that Eskom can do this on their own.
So are you supportive of this, keeping in mind the complexities of Eskom and its demands, and on the issues of alternative sources of energy generation, and the issues of for coal and the case against coal? Are you for this?
Absolutely for it, because the transmission grid is becoming one of the constraints in the rollout of new generation capacity, most particularly wind and solar PV. And we're going to need things like battery energy storage and new transmission lines in order to unlock the potential of distributed, large-scale renewable energy projects, which are absolutely critical for the decarbonization of the South African economy, to ensure that our economy is competitive in a global market that is introducing barriers towards high-carbon electricity, and really just to unlock the grid potential, which is at the moment constipated. There are bottlenecks which are preventing new generation capacity from being rolled out. And to unlock this, you need upgrades to the transmission grid, and you need new corridors, transmission corridors. And as I say, 14,000 kilometers of new lines over the next 10 years. This is a massive, massive task. And it can be done, but it cannot be done by government and Eskom alone.
Yeah. What about, here's the point. What about then, when we talk about the private sector, what is the capacity of the private sector to deliver on the demands of Eskom?
Well, the private sector's capacity is also constrained as a result of loss of skills and not building this new capacity on a regular annual basis. So some of the project skills, some of the technical skills, the engineering skills have moved around the world. These skills are in high demand everywhere in the world. And if the projects are not in South Africa, there will be many projects elsewhere, and they have been, and they have attracted a lot of skills away from South Africa. But this is a huge program, and there's an opportunity to reskill the South African engineering sector, the power engineering sector, and not only that, but to drive localization of various equipments, power lines, the structural steel work, the galvanizing of the steel, the construction activities, both civil and mechanical and electrical engineering. So this has the, if we handle this correctly, it can be part of what we call the just energy transition, which will reskill old declining areas of the South African economy and turn them into hubs of manufacturing activity, and the old skills can be used and retrained to develop new skills going forward. So I'm very supportive and optimistic that this is the right approach.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we all want to be on side in terms of anything that can grow the economy. We spoke earlier on about, constraints within the economy for businesses, small businesses, or anything that can enhance and not be an impediment, I think is most welcome. Let's see how that plays out. Appreciate you giving up your time, as always, Chris Yellen, talking energy, sometimes the lack thereof. But today it's the energy issues and maybe a boost for the private sector's involvement, as per the Minister of Electricity. That's Chris Yellen. You can add your comments on that as well. Let's get to, I'll get to your calls and some of your comments right after this.
Are you ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Okay, what we'll do, in fact, we'll around 5:45. As you know, we made those changes a few months ago. 5:45 or 10 to 5, 10 to 4, 10 to 5, 10 to 6, but 5:45. In fact, we have this whole range of lines opened up for you where you can have more blocks of conversation. That's really been prompted by, besides the type of content that we give you, that we know that you need to listen to on the one hand, on the other hand, it's to give you the type of, to provide the platform so that we can hear you as well. Because it's one thing, we get the experts who can talk about the issues that matter, but it's a completely another thing where we don't really hear what people are saying. Like, for example, even this.
Hi, Ashraf. It's quite simple for the DA to bypass all of these procedures and constitutional policies that are in place, which cannot be overruled by the GNU document or whatever agreement they signed as per the GNU. What the DA can do is win an election, and then when the ANC speaks about issues like the National Development Plan and all of those things linked to the Constitution and how the ANC has been governing over the years, then it's very easy for them to bypass it, So they must try and win an election and then take it from there. Anonymous Cape Town.
You know what's the reality? I mean, I hear what you're saying. In fact, the ANC also has to try and win an election, because forget what's happened in the past. At this point in time, if we look at like this season, in sporting terms, you're only as good as this season. This season, the ANC did not win the election. And that's why we're having the type of conversations we have now. 5:30, here's Greg Host with the news.
And a quick look at the headlines. South Africans have been urged to be more vigilant as a new Mpox variant is said to be highly infectious. SARS has announced that it's collected 1.85 trillion rand in tax revenue, and Lebanon's health ministry says at least 3 people have been killed after Israel carried out an airstrike on the suburbs of Beirut. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Centurion has delays towards Brockfontein interchange. In Bedfordview, the N3 southbound queuing towards Van Buren Road. The N3 northbound slow moving on the link to the N12 east at Kiluli's interchange. The N12 R24 westbound queuing on both routes towards Kiluli's interchange. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has a stationary truck near Market Road, the M7 queuing towards South Coast Road, the N3 westbound queuing towards the Pavilion Shopping Centre exit, and Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway. In the Free State, on the N3 northbound, a crash recovery near Frankfurt-Vrede interchange, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards the N2 highway, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Brackenfell, and the M7 checks Havel Drive southbound slow moving at Samora Machel. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
To me, a win is a win. Sundowns has got it.
A win is definitely a win, Ashraf. Mamelodi Sundowns took a 1-0 advantage after a first leg in their CAF Champions League quarter-final at Loftus Versfeld. This is a 1-0 win over Esperance. Peter Shalulile scored the only goal of the game in the 54th minute. The second leg between the two teams will be played next week, Tuesday, and the winner of the second leg will book a place in the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League and have a chance to advance to the finals. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates head coach Jose Rivera is banking on their experience against CR Belouizdad and Al Ahly, two top North African teams, as he prepares to meet Algeria giants MC Alger tonight. He also says that this phase of the tournament is a game of finer margins.
As usually, every time you make a step forward in the competitions that you're playing for, in this case the Champions League, usually the rhythm used to be different, the pace is different, you don't have you have less time to think and to play than in your domestic competition, let's say, in the most of the games. So basically the speed of the game is different and you need to do a quick adjustment to those circumstances in order to survive in those games. That's probably the main difference that I notice in my experience, my first time experience in the group stages. The quality of the players is higher, and that means that whichever mistake you make on the game, usually you get punished or close to get punished. So it's a small margin, it's about small details, and yeah, I think right now we are more prepared, probably, or for sure more prepared than 5 months ago.
Well, kickoff is at 9 p.m. Moving on to cricket. Cricket South Africa have announced that Rob Walter has resigned from his post as Proteas men's white ball head coach. Walter, who was appointed back in 2023, led South Africa to their first ever ICC men's T20 World Cup in 2024 and also saw the 50-over side reach the semis of the men's Cricket World Cup in 2023. In netball, former Spar Proteas captain Bongiwe Msomi says that she is set to be unveiled as the new Gauteng Golden Fireballs assistant coach ahead of the 2025 Telkom Netball League. Msomi has joined the team in camp at the University of Witwatersrand, and she says that she's very happy that her coaching journey is starting to take shape.
I'm super excited. I think at this stage, I just feel really honored that I can just see where my coaching journey is going, and I love that this massive opportunity is giving me a step again, to take the next step in my coaching career. I really enjoy coaching, and I think up to now, I've been quite impressed with, how I took on coaching and how I'm moving forward with it, and how every step of the way to me is important, and how I constantly make sure of that I don't skip any of it. So this is giving me a chance to really get onto the league in a different aspect, different position, and hopefully really play my part. I think Gauteng is really a massive province.
Moving on to athletics, 2 Oceans Marathon runners will be able to personalize their medals and engrave it with their names at the finish line or in the days after the race. Now, the race is this weekend with the Ultra Marathon 56-kilometer on Saturday, while the 21-kilometer is on Sunday. The race has once again been awarded the gold label status, meaning all records set at the race will be validated by both the IAU and World Athletics, elevating the event to higher heights. In boxing, Kevin Lerena is working around the clock to make sure that he's ready for his bid to become the first South African in history to successfully defend a WC title in Pretoria on the 1st of May. He's going to face Sergei Rachenko, and he's also the only 3rd South African to have held a coveted WBC belt after Sugar Boy Malinga and Digan Tobela, who both held the super middleweight version. And finally, in tennis, all focus now turns to the European clay court swing, with all eyes on the Roland Garros. Novak Djokovic will be bidding to finally clinch his 100th title before the French Open starts on the 25th of May. This is after a narrow miss in Miami, and Iga Swiatek is hoping a return to her favorite surface can bring an uptick in form, while several youngsters are looking to back up impressive starts to the year. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. I'll have more on other sports later.
Let me ask you later on the
sports show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're hosting the sports show tonight, 7 to 8.
I am.
By the way, Tumi's hosting the sports show 7 to 8 tonight. Listen up. Just a quick thought. I mean, from the cricket side, with the one, what did you say, the 50-over coach, right?
Yeah,
who's now
Rob
quit,
Walter. I actually thought it was an April Fool's joke.
You see, that's why I don't like this nonsense of April Fool. But I mean, it's genuine, right?
It is genuine. We actually did call the communications manager from Cricket South Africa. It's quite unfortunate that he's stepping down. Obviously, they do say that he's stepping down because of personal reasons. But, I mean, we've seen how the side has somehow improved under him. I mean, going to that first ever T20 World Cup final in 2024.
Yeah.
That's absolutely great. Now, the big question is who's going to step in his shoes.
And that's why we're going to listen to Tumi hosting Top Sports tonight, because you can tell her who should be stepping in anyway, right? Or she'll tell you. Tumi, thanks for that. Yeah, more sport. Well, you could better say goodbye.
Yeah, that's it.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Jimmy Muya hosts the SAFM Market Update. If Tumi's talking about a new cricket coach, I can tell you now the business equivalent of who's winning in cricket is SARS, right? And that's one of your big stories today, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. It certainly is. SARS has hit record collections in terms of the amount of money that they've brought in, and as part of those record collections, I think they've grossed over 2 trillion rands. So less of the payments that they've made, it's just shy of 2 trillion in collections that we're going to be discussing with them. We're going to be speaking to the Commissioner of the South African Revenue Services about that and getting a sense of what they have been doing throughout the year. Clearly, whatever it has been that they've been doing has been working, so we've got lots to speak to them about. We've also got a conversation with an economist from Econometrics, Dr. Azar Jamin, around the SOEs, and it's in particular reference to the Department of Public Works. The Minister of the Department of Public Works has proposed yet another new SOE that we should have, and we're going to be taking a look at that. And supposedly this SOE would be the one to manage the properties of the state property portfolio that would be to the tune of 155 billion rand. So we're going to speak to Dr. Jamin about that, because I was not able to get the Minister. The Minister has, or the team at the Minister's office has said they're not giving out any commentary on that proposal at this stage. So unfortunately, we won't be able to get their perspective on it, but we did try. We're also going to be taking a look at the property landscape. Property Tuesdays are what we do on a Tuesday. We're going to be looking at the Cape Town market in particular. There seems to be a new emerging trend called micro seasons. So I'm interested to see what that is like and what all of that is about and what's been driving that trend. So we've got lots to look into from that perspective. But before we get to all of that, the markets have had a remarkably better day, and the green on my screen almost feels like an April Fool's joke. It really does, because every market is in the green, no exceptions. The international equity markets were in the green in terms of trade. All of them were in the green, with the biggest gainer there being the ASX in Sydney, around 1% up. European markets, biggest gainer there was the DAX in Germany, that was up about 1.2%. And local markets all in the green. Industrials 1.5%, resources 1.5%, financials 1.2%, the all share 1.4%, and the top 40 1.4%. So looking very, very surprising for a Tuesday, particularly the start of the month. But of course, we do have some major news that are going to be coming out of the United States tomorrow that we're going to be keeping an eye on as well. Quick look at the currencies while we are on that note. The rand against the dollar, 18 rand 38. 1 British pound will cost you 23 rand 76. 1 euro, 19.86. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand 54. 1 Bitcoin will cost you just over $85,000 dollars per Bitcoin, or 1.56 million rand there. And a quick look at commodities. Gold price still holding steady, holding strong. $3,125 a fine ounce. Brent crude $74.90 a barrel. Platinum and palladium both above $1,000 a fine ounce there. So markets looking good today. We'll see if good is something that holds through. Tomorrow is, of course, that big announcement from, or the big day from a U.S. perspective, what Donald Trump has deemed U.S. Liberation Day. So we're going to dig into that, obviously, tomorrow, and perhaps do a bit of a build-up to it today to see what we can expect coming into tomorrow. So we'll be back a little later on for that. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. And you have a good show, 6 to 7, and then followed by Tumi, as you know, hosting the sports show, Top Sport, 7 to 8, and reminding you about Oliver Dixon's show from 10 to midnight as well. So all things covered, right? But by the way, I need to cover you. So what are your thoughts? What do you want to get off your chest? Let's hear it after this.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, so let's get straight to you and what do you think? I'll get to some of your WhatsApp comments in a moment, also some of the text messages that we have via WhatsApp, and I know many people posting on social media as well, right? So if you are posting, tag SFM Radio on the X platform, tweet us there, tag me, Ashraf Garda, use that hashtag, The National Pulse. Okay, let's get to some of your comments. So, yeah, just picking up on the issue of the budget, here's one.
Hi Ashraf, hope you're well. Marie-Louise from Cape Town here. I've been listening to the discussion around the budget and the VAT and the various political parties' suggestions and so on. I'm wondering, is anyone in government asking the people of South Africa? And I'm guessing that if you were to ask the people of South Africa, if they had to choose between a VAT increase or a reduction in government wasteful expenditure, it's pretty obvious what they would choose. So why is the ANC not able to make that choice? If they're not, it says a lot. And the time for politicking is long, long, long past. This government of national unity needs to actually pull together and serve the country. Thanks very much. Bye.
Well, thank you for raising that. I'm afraid, the reality is they hardly ever do ask the people when you say ask the people, because I've given an example during the elections. We voted for political parties, whoever we voted for, to get into power. When those parties don't get into power, we don't actually vote and advise the parties who they should go into coalition with. And they don't come back to us for a mandate. All the parties, not just one, the whole lot of them. And you'll find often who they then go into coalition or sharing of ruling of government with is a party that not only you oppose, but in fact they oppose as well in the build-up to elections. So yeah, okay. Right, GBV, alcohol is a big deal.
Bishop Joe van Durban would like to ask your guest, if you can, on the GBV campaign. It's not often publicized, but there's enough evidence from all over the world on the link of GBV to alcohol consumption. We see it here in South Africa, the statistics that come after long weekends, or when there have been strikes related in the past to SA breweries and the reduction in GBV, in other crimes, etc. And what are your guests then doing to lobby government to have stricter controls on the hours that control the sale of alcohol, the proximity of taverns, etc., to schools, churches, etc.? I think that will go a huge way towards reducing gender-based violence and all violence.
Now, point taken, Joe. I think here's the point. What is the influence of, or the impact of alcohol on the economy? Question mark. What is the impact of alcohol on delinquency? What is the impact of alcohol on issues like gender-based violence and violence per se? Somebody knows more, they can answer that question that Joe raised, right? Gift in the Eastern Cape. Go for it. What's your point?
Good day, Ashraf, and thanks for taking my call. Look, I think you put Mike from Newlands into his right corner because he's just a cheap propagandist and a serial white racist. Because, look, how does he equate ANC with the issue of Forte? Because I was just puzzled by the accusation that he made that ANC is a criminal enterprise. And he's talking nonsense, and I know he's listening now. And I think you responded to him very well and decisively because he's trying to protect those who are accused in that case of Forte because they are white. And I want to repeat, he's trying to protect them because they are white. And that's why he's speaking that's kind of nonsense, because he must wait for the court, because those investigators from that law firm are indicted in the state in that Forte Mafia case. So he must just wait for the application that they are making in court instead of trying to protect them, because he's trying to put the ANC into this issue of Forte, which is the ANC has got nothing to do with it. Okay. Because I was even listening to one of those lawyers the other day that the reason he's indicted is because he uncovered corruption in the case of the Prim of the Eastern Cape, which was utter nonsense. He's trying to save his skin.
Well, I mean, Gift, I hear you. Look, I mean, my issue with Mike is not even whether he's wrong, because I think we must accept, you and I both must accept, there are elements within the ANC that are criminal. And this, the political parties themselves will say so. We know that's why the ANC has been in the mess they're in right now. But my argument with him is you can't come in and call in every day. Like you talk about electricity, well, the ANC is a criminal syndicate. You talk about, issues of violence, the ANC, your first line is the ANC is a criminal syndicate. And my point is, like, it loses its impact when that's your default for everything. And that's really what it is, okay? So, I mean, you made the point as well. I'm not even getting into a white-black issue. I just think it's about just repeating things that just makes it redundant. And it just doesn't make for good listening to the majority of people who actually don't call in. Gift in the Eastern Cape, thanks for that. Imfundo in Cape Town, go for it. Hello.
Hi, Ashraf. Man, this Mike guy puzzles me. He really does.
It's the Mike show, man. Come on, he's like the central
and I don't know, Ashraf, if there will be a time where the public radio can maybe ban some negative comments.
Oh goodness, I don't want to go there. Yeah.
Because our country now doesn't need negative comments from Mike. For instance, we've got a budget that hasn't been approved. Now, if you got negative comments from Mike, and I can tell you now, Ashraf, Mike doesn't want to comment about this rapes, because that happened in Matatiela, because I can tell you why. Because the principal of that school is a white man.
Yeah, but we don't know. I mean, to be fair to him now, we can't now. You can't tell me what Mike's thinking. And you see the point that you're saying about negative comments. If we then decide what's negative and then censor that, that's the type of censorship we don't want to get involved in. For example, the person I spoke to about gender-based violence that wants to have a national, a whole campaign around ensuring that it's seen as a national disaster. Some may call that negative. Some may call that positive. Depends on your perspective.
Ashraf, I hear you. But I've listened to SAFM for far too long. And Mike has been calling, and Mike has never called the person of any other color into order, but the black person.
Okay. Time's against me. You've made your point. Thanks for that call. Lots to consider here on the National Pulse.
Masandawana have a master plan to win in their own backyard to ease off the pressure before the trip to the north. But the Beast of Africa want to demonstrate why they are also called the Smiling One. This is the first leg quarterfinal battle of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on the delight of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Esperance de Tunis on Tuesday, 1 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Okay, more thoughts, more comments. Right, we get to another call. Also from Cape Town. In fact, we've had a lot of Cape Town callers today. Shata, go for it. What's your point?
Afternoon, evening.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening. Go for it, yeah.
Ashraf, you know the biggest parasite, the biggest political parasite in South Africa. DA are the biggest political parasite in this country. In as much as they're scavenging over the colored and the black votes in Cape Town, in the Western Cape in general, to advance white interest, they're taking advantage of the unfortunate situation in South Africa where one of the parties in the GNU wants to increase the VAT, of which many South Africans don't approve of such. But DA is using it so that they can change legislations and acts that were passed by the parliament. You know, they want
All
to
right, I hear you. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, honestly speaking, you know, the DA does that today because they want to do what suits them. You think the ANC doesn't do what suits them every single day? All these parties, and I can go EFF and MK, and we can go all the way down the line. They look at their vision, their policies, and then say, okay, how do we find gaps based upon the current issues in the country that we can then push our policies through, and if we have to leverage of that to get our way, then we will do so. Don't you think they all do it?
Ashraf, I agree. I agree. They want to govern through the back door. And having had said that, I entirely agree. But they must not come with this talk that they are looking after the poor people's interest. No, they're looking after their own voters. They're looking after the white people.
But you
so
see,
they're using the situation to serve their own electorate.
Okay, Shata, you know, the good thing is, and I'll leave it at that, is that this is the democracy we have, and even these airwaves are a democracy, and that allows you to voice your opinion about the DA, and it allows someone else to call in and give their opinion about the DA that's completely different to yours. And you know what? We listen, we like them to back it up, and then we say, okay, let's move on. So that's just a wonderful thing. So I'm saying if someone so disagrees with the DA policy, don't vote for them. I mean, that's what it is. And the same with the other parties too, isn't it? Right, let's pick up other points that we touched on earlier on, including some of the issues about the school principal.
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. I hope you had a blessed Eid yesterday. This is Forrest from the beautiful Western Cape. Ashraf, if that principal wasn't at the school on the day of this alleged rape, then why does he not want to give a sample, a DNA sample? If I knew I wasn't anywhere near an area where a crime was committed, then I would easily give my fingerprints or a DNA swab. Have a good day, bye-bye.
Thank you. But you say thanks for the Eid greetings, but then you're not the principal. That's the point, isn't it?
Good afternoon, SFM, or good evening. On the issue of the femicide that is occurring in South Africa and what the Women for Change wants, I would like you maybe to all read a book that was written by Dr. Arno van Niekerk. He wrote it, I think, back in 2016. It's written enough. That book entails all the social ills of the country and like where we came from. In particular, the apartheid legacy and the secularization aspect of it, of how it brought all the social ills of the country that we have today.
Okay, well, thanks for raising it. I think the question we're asking is like, how long can that continue? Because there are many other countries, so they don't have apartheid, but I'm just thinking about Bosnia, for example, totally decimated in the early 90s, just around the time that we voted for elections, and for the first election, right? And they're able to bounce back from that. So yes, we can't deny the inherent disadvantages and inequality that exists in our society. And a lot of it is going to do with apartheid. You can't deny that. But to also make that the default, to say, well, that's why we are. So, like, it's one of those things. That can never be acceptable, can it?
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. Ashraf, the DA, when it comes to the budget, the DA, it's one of the most unprincipled political parties. We have known now for a number of days that the DA would have supported a 0.5% increase in VAT if the ANC is willing to compromise on the Bella Act, NHA, and the recently passed Land Distribution Act. It tells you that the DA, in fact, does not have the interest of poor people, in particular black people, at heart. That is why they are gambling like that. If you don't believe me, go and have a look at Khayelitsha, Google it to the Cape Flats, etc., and tell me if the DA really has got the interest of black people at heart. Thank you, Rudolph from Mpumalanga Witbank.
All right, I've certainly pronounced often about the disparities, the massive disparities about the DA, how they run their city. I'm talking of Camps Bay and Constantia and the V&A waterfront, and how they run, the Cape Flats areas, and just how, that massive divide that plays out there.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Makwarele Chinyazo from Toyambo. You know what, Ashraf? You know what? The DA will never leave this GNU because of these VAT things, because they know that it is very cold sitting out there on the bench, And remember, DA is a pro-business party, and this GNU was initiated by big businesses, and the DA can't afford to see the opposition party like the EFF to replace them, collapsing the economy of this country.
Well, okay. Maybe my guess is the DA will never leave the GNU, and the ANC will not part ways with the DA regarding the GNU. How's that?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Anything that has to do with the VAT increase, 0.1, 0.01, ANC must just know they are not for the poor. Thank you.
Okay, no matter what, isn't it ironic the DA is fighting the case of the poor? I mean, that's around the VAT issue. Is that a contradiction? Think about it.
Hi, Ashraf. You see, in regard to crime in South Africa, the rapings and the killings, drug dealings, all these nefarious activities taking place in South Africa, Minister of Justice is to blame. Minister of Police is to blame. The President of the country is also to blame. All these three people actually must be impeached, must step down from their position. What they are doing, these three people, it's crime against humanity. It's crime against humanity, what they are doing to the people of South Africa. Thanks, Willie Nkuma.
Thanks for that, Willie. Right, the last one I'm going to play is again about the DA, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. I just want someone to ask the DA why they're communicating something different on their Facebook page. On their Facebook page, they are saying the ANC is not pro-poor. The ANC want the VAT increase and the DA doesn't want it. They are not going forward to say, but they are negotiating other strategies in order to agree to the VAT increase. So they are just acting as if they are holier than thou.
I would think they all do the same thing, quite honestly. And I mean all the political parties, plural, from A to Z. Okay, that's the show. That's the National Pulse. I have no doubt I'm going to keep my eyes on the media, SAFM and others tonight, and social media, because the National Pulse absolutely is 24/7. And if you ever had a doubt about that, then you'll be aware of the conversations that will take place around the GNU and VAT all throughout tonight and tomorrow, because it is all about the budget. Who are you budgeting for? That's the show. Let's get the news now. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Call for vigilance over new Mpox variant and more than R1 trillion in tax revenue. Good evening. South Africans have been urged to be more vigilant as the new Mpox variant is said to be highly infectious. It's unlike the first variant that was said to be transmitted mainly through sexual contact, skin-to-skin contact and sharing items like bedding and clothing. The new variant can be transmitted through touching, coughing, sneezing and mucus. So far, the new variant has been reported in 7 African